Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos. The main character after dying lives a few years as Issei's brother until one day he finds the Chakra fruit and then the next day he creates the 10 tails. He is inside of high school DxD. Will he help the devils, angels, or the fallen?
Though her eyes sparkled with curiosity. Rhea sighed heavily, her crimson eyes darting between us. Riser's flames flickered faintly at his fingertips, though his smirk stayed steady. You're either very brave, or very stupid. I smirked wider. Or very perfect. Which is the answer you're looking for? The dragon stirred faintly at my tone. The gold one wagged its tail but stayed quiet this time. The blue one blinked steadily, calm. The white one pressed tighter. The original leaned closer, whispering softly, "You're the best." Obviously, I replied, not lowering my voice. Rhea's finally raised her voice, sharp and clear. Enough. This meeting isn't about showing off. Everything is about showing off, I said cheerfully. Her crimson eyes narrowed at me, but she didn't argue. Instead, she turned to Riser. You came here to finalize your challenge. If you want me to accept, you'll have to do it formally. Riser smirked wider. Of course. That's why I'm here. But, his eyes flicked back to me, sharp. Now I'm curious. Why is he really here, Rheas? I leaned forward casually, my grin unchanging. Because if you leave me out, it's not worth doing. The dragons wagged their tails faintly in unison, their tiny wings buzzing once. The silence in the room stretched. At last, Riser leaned back, flames fading slightly as he exhaled. Fine. But if you stand in my way, boy, you'll regret it. I laughed loudly, shaking my head. You'll regret even saying that. But sure. Keep trying. The gold dragon chirped softly, finally. The blue one blinked. The white one stayed pressed against me. The original wagged its tail. You'll always win. Exactly, I said smoothly, smirking at Riser again. His smirk faltered just slightly this time. Rheas exhaled again, rubbing her temple as though exhausted already. Chapter 28, Riser's Mockery. The room stayed heavy with silence after my cheerful jab. The air smelled faintly of smoke from Riser's aura, but my grin never wavered. My dragons clustered along my shoulders and arms, their tails wagging lightly, their wings buzzing faintly. Riser leaned back on the couch, studying me, his amber eyes narrowing slightly. Finally, his gaze drifted down, past me, to the flock clinging to my frame. He smirked. So that's it? Your little trinkets. I thought they were ornaments at first, but no, they're your familiars, aren't they? The gold one wagged its tail faintly, chirping once. The green one tilted its head, silent. The blue one blinked slowly, steady. The white one pressed closer to my chest, wordless. And the original stared back at him, tail swishing softly. I smirked wider. Familiars? That's an insult. These are mine. Followers. Proof that even small things are stronger than people like you when they're connected to me. Riser chuckled, his voice low, mocking. Proof? They're nothing but toys. Small, weak things meant to play pretend. Do you expect me to be afraid of that? The grin on my face widened even further. You should be. They're already better than you. Riser laughed louder, his flames flaring faintly. Bold words. Do you expect me to believe those little things could stand against a phoenix? I tilted my head, cheerful. They don't need to stand against you. Standing against your pride is enough. The gold dragon hopped once on my shoulder, its tail swishing. A faint glow shimmered at its claws before it tapped the table gently. The wood sizzled under its touch, leaving a small, clear scorch mark. The room fell silent again. Konako's eyes widened faintly. Akeno's polite smile didn't falter, but her gaze lingered on the faint scorch. Kaiba's lips pressed together tightly. Rias's crimson eyes flicked from the table to me, narrowing further. Riser's smirk twitched. His amber eyes snapped back to me, sharper now. I leaned back lazily, still smirking. Do you need more proof? That was them holding back. You wouldn't last if they didn't. The blue dragon blinked slowly. The green one sniffed faintly. The white one pressed tighter against me, silent but steady. Riser exhaled sharply, leaning back again. His smirk returned, though thinner now. You have nerve, I'll give you that. Not nerve, I corrected cheerfully. Perfection. The room's tension shifted again as a new presence entered. The door opened smoothly, and Grafia Lucifuge stepped inside. Her silver hair framed her composed face, her maid uniform pristine, her expression cold yet calm. Her gaze swept over the room, pausing briefly on Rias before flicking to Riser. Then, finally, to me. Good. Everyone is here, she said evenly. Rias exhaled, her crimson eyes dropping slightly. Grafia. Grafia stepped forward, her tone calm but unyielding. Rias Gremory. As you know, this meeting concerns your engagement to Riser Fenix. The words filled the air instantly, heavy and sharp. Issei chose that moment to arrive, bursting through the door with his usual clumsiness. His eyes went wide as he saw the room, Rias, Riser, Grafia, and me leaning back casually with my dragons perched proudly. Wait, what? Engagement, he shouted instantly, his face pale. Rias closed her eyes briefly, exhaling again. Yes. Grafia's voice stayed steady. This engagement was arranged by your parents, the Gremory family, and the Fenix family. Riser is here to formalize it. But, her eyes flicked toward me briefly before returning to Rias. Your rejection is clear. The only way to settle this now is through a rating game. The word carried weight. Kaiba stiffened slightly. Akeno's smile thinned faintly. Konako's fists clenched. Issei's face went slack with disbelief. A rating game. Grafia nodded. 2 weeks from today, Rias Gremory and her peerage will face Riser Fenix and his peerage in a rating game. If Rias wins, the engagement will be broken. If Riser wins, the engagement will be secured. The silence that followed was thick. I smirked wider. So that's what this is about. A marriage you don't want, and the only way out is beating him in a glorified chess match. Rias's eyes narrowed faintly. Yes. Riser chuckled smoothly, leaning forward again. And I'll win, of course. My peerage outnumbers yours. Outmatches yours. This is already decided. Issei shouted instantly, his fists trembling. No way. Rias Senpai isn't going to lose to you. I laughed loudly, cheerful. Of course she is. Look at her team. They're weaker. Slower. Less disciplined. You wouldn't last 5 minutes against him. Issei spun toward me, his face red. Shut up, Shredder. You don't know anything. I grinned wider. I know more than you ever will. You're useless. Everyone here knows it. The gold dragon chirped faintly, tail wagging once. The blue one blinked, steady. The green one sniffed faintly. The white one pressed closer. The original wagged its tail gently, eyes soft. Grafia's expression didn't change, but her eyes lingered on me for a moment longer than necessary before she turned back to Rias. You have 2 weeks to prepare. Use it wisely. Rias nodded once, her crimson eyes sharp now. I will. The tension only grew as the meeting wrapped. Riser smirked, rising from his seat. 2 weeks, then. I'll see you on the battlefield, Rias. His eyes flicked to me briefly, sharp with faint irritation. And you, stay out of my way. I chuckled cheerfully. No promises. I'm far too interesting to ignore. His smirk faltered slightly before he turned, his flames flaring faintly as he left the room. Grafia followed smoothly, her silver hair catching the light as the door closed behind them. The silence that followed was heavy. Issei spun toward Rias instantly, his voice cracking. Rias-senpai. We'll win, right? Rias exhaled slowly, her crimson eyes sharp. We have to. I smirked from my seat, leaning back casually. You won't. But watching you try will be entertaining. Issei growled instantly. Shut up, Shredder. I laughed loudly, patting the gold dragon's head. Perfect. Chapter 29, Training begins. The morning air carried a crisp chill, the kind that lingered on your skin even as the sun climbed higher in the sky. The courtyard behind the old school building had been cleared, the ground marked faintly from repeated use. Rias stood at the center, her crimson hair catching the light, her expression sharp and composed. Her peerage gathered in a loose line around her Kaiba with his sword already at his side, Konako standing with fists raised, Akeno smiling faintly though her eyes were focused. And then there was Issei, sweating already despite the cool air, his fists clenched at his sides as though that alone would make him look more prepared. I leaned lazily against the wall at the edge of the yard, my grin plastered in place. My dragons perched along my shoulders and arms, their wings buzzing faintly as they watched. The original tilted its head slightly, tail wagging once. They look serious. The gold one sat near my collarbone, unusually quiet, its wings twitching faintly. The green one sniffed the air, silent. The blue one blinked slowly, calm as always. The white one pressed against me, unmoving. I smirked. Serious, yes. Effective, no. Rias's voice rang out across the yard. We have 2 weeks. We can't waste a single day. If we want to win, we need to strengthen ourselves now. Her eyes lingered on Issei briefly before moving to the rest. Kaiba nodded once. Understood. Konako gave a short nod, silent but steady. Akeno smiled faintly, her voice calm. Of course. Issei clenched his fists tighter. Right. I'll do my best, Rias-senpai. I laughed loudly, calling across the yard. Your best isn't enough, Issei. It never has been. He spun instantly, his face red. Shut up, Shredder. I smirked wider. You'll say that every day for the next 2 weeks, and you'll still be useless. Rias's crimson eyes narrowed at me briefly, but she didn't speak. Instead, she turned back to her team. We're starting with basics. Issei, you'll work with Kaiba. The session began. Kaiba drew his sword, his stance steady, his blade gleaming faintly in the sunlight. Issei raised his fists awkwardly, his breathing already heavy though he'd barely moved. Begin, Rias commanded. Kaiba moved first, darting forward with sharp precision. Issei yelped, stumbling backward before throwing a clumsy punch. Kaiba sidestepped easily, tapping his blade gently against Issei's shoulder. I laughed cheerfully from the wall. Pathetic. He didn't even swing hard, and you nearly fell over. You call that training? Issei shouted, his voice cracking. Shut up, Shredder. The gold dragon tilted its head. The blue one blinked. The green one sniffed again. The white one pressed closer. The original spoke softly, he's struggling. I patted its head. Naturally. Konako stepped forward next, her fists tight, her stance low. She moved with precision, her small frame a blur as she struck at a training dummy set in the dirt. Each hit landed sharply, the wood creaking under her blows. Rias nodded approvingly. Good. Keep your form steady. I smirked from my spot. At least one of you looks like you know what you're doing. Issei spun toward me again, red-faced. Stop talking like you're better than everyone. I laughed. I don't talk like I am. I am. The dragons stayed quiet, their tails swishing lightly. Akeno floated above next, her lightning sparking faintly at her fingertips. She extended her hand, arcs of energy leaping toward a row of wooden targets. Each one splintered under the force, sparks scattering across the dirt. Her smile never wavered, though her eyes narrowed slightly with focus. Rias nodded again. Good. I clapped once, cheerful. Finally, something worth watching. At least she doesn't embarrass herself like the rest of you. Issei growled instantly. Shut up, Shredder. I smirked wider. Predictable. The hours dragged, the team rotating through drills. Kaiba's movements grew sharper, his blade flashing in the sunlight. Konako's fists left dents in the training dummies. Akeno's lightning grew louder, sharper, each strike cleaner than the last. And Issei. He stumbled. He tripped. His punches swung wide. His breathing grew heavier with every passing minute, his face red, sweat dripping down his cheeks. I watched, smirking. Pathetic. 2 weeks won't save him. Rias finally snapped toward me, her crimson eyes sharp. If you're not going to help, then stay quiet. I grinned wider. But I am helping. I'm telling you the truth. You just don't like hearing it. Her lips pressed tightly together, but she turned back to her team. As the sun dipped lower, the first day of training wound down. Rias gathered her group, her tone sharp. We'll continue tomorrow. Rest tonight. We can't waste time. Kaiba nodded once, calm. Konako gave another short nod. Akeno smiled faintly. Issei nearly collapsed, panting heavily, his hands on his knees. I'll do better tomorrow. Rias-senpai. I smirked cheerfully. No, you won't. He snapped his head toward me, glaring weakly. Shut up, Shredder. I laughed loudly, turning away with my dragons perched proudly along my shoulders. Perfect, I muttered. The original wagged its tail softly. The gold one chirped faintly. The green one sniffed. The blue one blinked slowly. The white one pressed tighter. Chapter 30, A Flock Awakens. The yard behind the old school building was nearly empty by the time the training session ended. The air carried the smell of dirt, sweat, and faint ozone from Akeno's lightning strikes. Rias had dismissed her peerage to rest, her crimson eyes sharp with determination as she led them inside. Kaiba stayed calm and disciplined, Konako silent but steady, Akeno smiling faintly as always. Issei dragged himself after them, stumbling and panting, his shoulders slumped with exhaustion. I stayed outside, leaning lazily against the wall with my grin fixed in place. My dragons perched across my shoulders and arms, their wings buzzing faintly as they looked down at the scuffed earth where Rias's team had been training. The gold one tilted its head, wings twitching. It hopped down from my shoulder, landing lightly on the dirt. I want to try. The original leaned forward, curious, its tail wagging. Try. The gold one nodded eagerly. Fighting. Like they did. The green one sniffed faintly, then hopped down beside it. The blue one blinked once before gliding down calmly, wings buzzing. The white one hesitated but finally stepped down too, quiet as always, pressing closer to the others. The original looked up at me, its tail swishing. Can we? I smirked wide, pushing off the wall. Of course. Show me what you can do. Entertain me. The flock spread out across the dirt yard, their small forms circling each other. For a moment, they were still. Then, without warning, the gold one darted forward, its glowing claws swiping at the green. The green hopped back, its tail swishing, eyes narrowing faintly before lunging forward in return. The blue one watched calmly before stepping in, wings buzzing as it swiped once, sharp and steady. The white one stayed still at first, its gaze locked on the others, before finally moving quietly, its claws glowing faintly as it pressed forward. The original darted into the middle with a cheerful chirp, its tail wagging even as it swiped playfully at the gold. I grinned, folding my arms. Perfect. A proper show. At first, their movements were clumsy swipes too wide, wings buzzing unevenly as they darted across the dirt. But then, something shifted. The air itself began to stir. A faint shimmer rippled around the flock, subtle but steady. I felt it brush against my skin, that same familiar sensation I'd recognized before. The pull of energy. I raised a brow, my grin widening. So it's not just you, I said to the original. All of you can absorb it. The original glanced back briefly, tail wagging. It feels good. The gold one chirped, leaping higher into the air, its claws glowing brighter as it swiped down. The green one's scales shimmered faintly, its small frame moving with sharper precision. The blue one's movements grew steadier, its strikes heavier. The white one glowed faintly at the edges, its quiet steps leaving small scorch marks in the dirt. I laughed loudly, the sound echoing across the yard. Of course. My flock is naturally better than everyone else. Even without trying, you grow stronger just by breathing. The sparring continued. The gold darted left and right, its movements energetic, its claws glowing brighter with each swipe. The green matched it with heavier strikes, its tail swishing sharply as it pushed the gold back. The blue intercepted both, steady and precise, its strikes sharp and calm. The white moved silently, appearing behind the blue with a faint glow, its claws swiping once across its side before retreating again. The original bounced between them, striking playfully at each, its tail wagging the entire time. The air grew thicker, heavier, as energy flowed toward them naturally. Each movement seemed stronger than the last, each strike brighter. I grinned wider, clapping my hands once. Perfect. Keep going. Show me more. The flock's movements grew faster, their glowing claws clashing against each other with sharp bursts of light. The dirt under them cracked slightly where their strikes landed. The gold one chirped loudly as it swiped down at the green. The green growled faintly in return, its claws glowing brighter as it pushed back. The blue slid between them again, calm and steady, blocking both with sharp precision. The white moved silently around them, waiting, its tail glowing faintly before it darted forward again. The original leapt high, its wings buzzing, before diving between them all with a cheerful chirp. I laughed again, my voice cheerful. Look at that! Even your play fights outclass everything Rias tried today. Not a single one of them pulled energy from the air. You do it naturally. The gold swiped again, its claws leaving a small glowing mark in the dirt. The green countered, sparks scattering faintly. The blue pressed forward calmly, blocking both. The white darted forward again, silent and sharp. The original wagged its tail, colliding with the gold before bouncing back with a cheerful chirp. The air shimmered faintly again as energy poured toward them, their scales glowing brighter. The sound of footsteps drew my attention. Rias and Akeno stood at the edge of the yard, watching. Rias's crimson eyes narrowed instantly at the sight of my dragons clashing. What are they doing? I smirked, folding my arms. Better training than yours. Akeno covered her mouth faintly, her polite smile steady as her eyes lingered on the flock. The gold darted upward again, chirping loudly as it swiped down. The green blocked, tail swishing sharply. The blue slid in calmly, pushing both back. The white darted in silently, glowing faintly brighter. The original chirped happily, striking at the blue with playful force. Rias's eyes narrowed further, her lips pressing tightly together. They're absorbing it. I grinned. Naturally. They don't need drills. They grow just by existing. A concept you should be familiar with, considering how useless your brother is without constant hand-holding. Rias's crimson eyes snapped toward me sharply, but she didn't speak. Akeno's smile twitched faintly, though her gaze never left the flock. The sparring went on until the dragons finally slowed, their glowing claws dimming slightly as they landed in a loose circle, tails wagging faintly, wings buzzing softly. The original looked up at me, its tail swishing. We did it. I smirked wide. Of course you did. You're mine. You'll always do better than anyone else. The gold chirped once, wagging its tail proudly. The green sniffed faintly, its eyes half closed. The blue blinked calmly. The white pressed closer to me again, quiet as always. I reached down, patting each of them in turn. Perfect. Every one of you. Rias turned sharply, her crimson eyes narrowing as she walked away without another word. Akeno followed quietly, her polite smile unshaken. I laughed cheerfully, the sound echoing across the empty yard. They can't stand it. Even their training looks pathetic next to mine. The dragons chirped softly in agreement, their tails wagging as they settled back onto my shoulders. Chapter 31, Brother's Frustration. The morning sun crept higher over Kuah Academy, spilling light across the courtyard. The air was cool, crisp, with a faint breeze that carried the smell of grass and dust. Behind the old school building, the yard was already alive with the sounds of training. Rias's peerage moved in steady rhythm. Kaiba's blade flashed sharply as he slashed against practice targets. Konako's fists struck with audible cracks, each blow leaving faint dents in the dummies. Akeno hovered above, her lightning crackling against wooden boards set along the field. Issei stood a little apart, fists clenched, sweat already dripping down his brow though the training had barely begun. His breathing was sharp, uneven, as he tried to keep up with the pace Rias demanded. I, of course, leaned lazily against the wall again, arms crossed, my grin unshakable. My dragons perched along my shoulders and arms, their tails wagging lightly, wings buzzing faintly as they watched the peerage train. The original tilted its head, tail swishing. They're working hard. The gold one hopped onto my lap before buzzing off again, landing in the dirt with a cheerful bounce. The green one sniffed faintly at the air, calm and quiet. The blue one blinked slowly, eyes following Kaiba's precise movements. The white one pressed closer against my chest, silent as always. I smirked wide. Working hard doesn't mean working well. That's the difference. You're all better without even trying. As the peerage's drills continued, the gold dragon darted toward the center of the dirt yard again, wings buzzing furiously. It chirped once before slashing its glowing claws against the dirt, leaving a faint line of light behind. The original hopped down to join it, wagging its tail happily. The blue one followed more calmly, its movements steady, sharp, controlled. The green slid in beside them, quiet but deliberate. The white one hesitated before stepping down too, moving with silent confidence. They circled one another, wings buzzing faintly, tails swishing. And then, with no further signal, they clashed again. The gold darted first, its claws glowing brighter. The green countered, its tail sweeping sharp against the dirt. The blue blocked both, steady and calm, while the white moved silently around the side before striking once at the gold's flank. The original bounded between them cheerfully, swiping playfully at each. The air shimmered faintly as energy flowed toward them naturally, their scales glowing brighter with each passing moment. I laughed cheerfully, clapping once. Perfect. Even their games look more impressive than your training. Issei's head snapped toward me instantly, his face already red. Shut up, Shredder. I smirked wider. Already angry? I didn't even finish the insult. He growled, his fists trembling. His eyes darted toward the dragons, watching them collide again with sharp bursts of light as their claws met. The sight of their glowing scales made his face twist. Rias called sharply, "Focus, Issei." He snapped back toward her instantly. "Why yes, Rias-senpai." He stumbled back into his stance, trying to throw punches at the training dummy. His fists landed clumsily, his arms shaking with each strike. Sweat dripped down his cheeks, his shirt clinging to his back. I chuckled loudly. Look at that! They grow stronger by breathing, and you can't even throw a straight punch without looking pathetic. Issei spun again, glaring at me, his voice cracking. "Shut up, Shredder!" The gold dragon chirped once, tilting its head. The original wagged its tail softly. The blue blinked, calm. The green sniffed faintly. The white pressed closer to me again, silent. Issei's fists trembled harder. His voice came out louder, angrier. "Why do you always get everything? Why are they all so strong just because they follow you? Why can't I ever?" He cut himself off, his chest heaving, his face red with frustration. I grinned wider. "Because you're you. That's why. You'll never be me, Issei. No matter how much you cry about it." His jaw dropped slightly, his teeth clenched, but no words came. The dragons continued sparring as though unaffected by his outburst. The gold darted upward again, its glowing claws leaving faint marks in the air as it swiped. The green countered heavily, forcing it back. The blue blocked both steadily, moving with precision, while the white darted in silently once more. The original bounded happily between them, tail wagging even as it struck. Their movements grew faster, sharper, brighter with each clash as more energy flowed toward them naturally. The dirt cracked faintly under their feet. Sparks of light scattered with each collision. I smirked wider, gesturing lazily toward them. "See that, Issei? They're growing while you're standing still. That's the difference between us." His face twisted further. His fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Shut up, Shredder!" Rias's voice cut across the yard again. "Issei, enough. Focus." He flinched, spinning back to his dummy, throwing more shaky punches, his breath ragged. I laughed loudly, clapping again. "Pathetic. Even she's tired of you." The training dragged on for another hour, the peerage rotating drills. Kaiba's strikes grew sharper, Konako's blows heavier, Akeno's lightning louder. Issei stumbled repeatedly, his punches wild, his body shaking with exhaustion. Meanwhile, my dragons only grew stronger as they sparred, their glowing claws brighter, their scales sturdier, their movements faster. The air shimmered faintly around them, the natural absorption of energy constant, steady, effortless. I smirked, leaning back against the wall again. Perfect. My flock gets stronger just by being near me. You need 2 weeks of grueling work just to lose more gracefully. Issei shouted without looking at me this time, his voice hoarse. "Shut up, Shredder!" The gold chirped again faintly, its tail wagging once before striking at the green. The original wagged its tail happily, swiping at the blue. The white remained silent, but its glow was brighter now, sharper. The green pressed back, heavy and deliberate. The blue blocked steadily, calm as always. I grinned. Naturally. By the time the session ended, the yard was a mess of cracked dirt, scorched wood, and heavy silence. Rias dismissed her team, her tone sharp. Rest. Tomorrow we push harder. Kaiba nodded once, calm. Konako gave a short nod. Akeno smiled faintly. Issei collapsed onto the dirt, panting heavily, sweat soaking through his shirt. His fists trembled as he tried to push himself back up. His eyes darted toward me, his face twisted in a mix of anger and shame. I smirked cheerfully. Still breathing? Impressive. I thought you'd quit by now. He growled, his voice raw. Shut up, Shredder. I laughed loudly, turning away with my dragons perched proudly along my shoulders, their scales glowing faintly brighter from the energy they'd absorbed. Perfect, I muttered. Chapter 32, Strain and Superiority. The second morning of training started earlier than the first. The sun had only just begun to rise, casting long shadows across the yard behind the old school building. The air was crisp, the ground still damp from the dew. Rias was already there, standing tall, her crimson hair catching the faint light. Her expression was sharper than yesterday's, her posture rigid with determination. Her peerage gathered around her, tired but obedient. Kaiba stood steady, sword already drawn. Konako crouched slightly, fists ready. Akeno floated lightly above the ground, her smile calm but thinner than usual. And then there was Issei, already sweating, already panting, his fists clenched as though that alone would stop him from falling behind again. I leaned lazily against the wall at the edge of the yard, arms folded across my chest, my grin unshakable. My dragons perched across my shoulders and arms, their tails wagging faintly, wings buzzing softly as they watched. The original tilted its head toward the center. They looked tired already. The gold shifted restlessly, its wings twitching as though itching to move. The green sniffed faintly, quiet. The blue blinked slowly, calm. The white pressed against my chest, unmoving, silent. I smirked wide. They're weak. No matter how hard they push, they'll never match you. That's the difference between being chosen by me and being stuck with her. Rias raised her voice, sharp. Today we go harder. Yesterday wasn't enough. If we want to stand a chance, we need to push ourselves beyond our limits. Her crimson eyes swept over her team. Kaiba, double your drills. Konako, you'll strike until the dummies break. Akeno, no holding back on output. Issei, she paused, her eyes narrowing faintly. You'll keep moving until you collapse. Issei stiffened, his face paling. Why yes, Rias senpai. I laughed loudly, the sound carrying across the yard. Perfect. She's admitting you're the weakest by making you the example. Issei snapped toward me instantly, his face red. Shut up, Shredder. I grinned wider. You say that every day, but it never changes the truth. The dragons stayed quiet, their tails swishing lightly as they watched. The session began. Kaiba moved swiftly, his sword flashing with sharp precision as he slashed through one target after another. His movements were faster than yesterday's, but his breathing grew sharper, heavier, the strain visible in his shoulders. Konako struck hard, her fists pounding into the dummies with audible cracks. Her blows dented the wood, splinters scattering across the dirt. But sweat beaded on her forehead quickly, her small frame trembling faintly as she pushed herself harder than before. Akeno hovered above, sparks crackling at her fingertips. She unleashed steady arcs of lightning, splintering targets one by one, her smile calm but her brow furrowing faintly with effort. And Issei. He stumbled. He tripped. His punches swung wide. His breathing was already ragged, his fists trembling, his knees nearly buckling. Rias's voice cut through the yard. Don't stop, Issei. Keep moving. He pushed forward, his jaw clenched, but his body shook with every swing. I smirked, calling cheerfully. Pathetic. One day and you're already falling apart. My dragons are sparring for fun while you're gasping for air. As if on cue, the gold hopped down from my shoulder, wings buzzing. The original followed, wagging its tail. The blue glided down calmly, the green stepping quietly beside it. The white landed last, silent but steady. They spread out across the dirt, circling each other again. The gold darted forward first, claws glowing as it swiped at the blue. The blue blocked calmly, its claws sparking faintly as they clashed. The green lunged next, forcing the gold back with a heavy swipe. The white slid in silently, striking once before darting away again. The original bounded happily between them, its tail wagging even as it swiped. The air shimmered faintly again as energy flowed toward them, their scales glowing brighter with every movement. I laughed loudly, clapping once. See? That's growth. They're stronger than yesterday without even trying. You can't keep up, no matter how much you sweat. Issei spun toward me again, his voice breaking. Shut up, Shredder. They're just monsters. I grinned wider. No, Issei. They're proof. Proof that I'm better. And you'll never catch up. Kaiba faltered slightly in his strikes, his breathing sharper now, sweat dripping down his jaw. Konako's fists slowed faintly, her blows still heavy but her arms trembling with fatigue. Akeno's lightning flickered weaker, her smile thinning as her focus wavered. Issei nearly collapsed outright, stumbling against his dummy, barely managing to stay upright. His chest heaved, his shirt clinging to him, his eyes unfocused. Meanwhile, the dragons only grew brighter. Their movements sharper, faster, stronger with each clash. The dirt cracked under their feet, faint sparks scattering with every strike. The original chirped once, wagging its tail. The gold leapt higher, claws glowing intensely. The green pressed forward heavily, sparks scattering with its strikes. The blue blocked steadily, its claws sharp and precise. The white darted in silently, glowing faintly brighter. The air thickened as energy poured into them constantly. I smirked wide, folding my arms. Perfect. My flock is evolving in front of you while you're breaking yourselves just to stay the same. Rias's crimson eyes flicked toward me, narrowing sharply, but she said nothing. Hours passed, the peerage's bodies straining under the intensity. Kaiba's movements slowed, his strikes less sharp. Konako's fists weakened, her arms shaking. Akeno's lightning flickered inconsistently, her breathing sharper. Issei collapsed outright, falling to his knees, panting, his fists trembling weakly at his sides. His eyes darted toward me, filled with frustration and shame. I laughed loudly, cheerful. Done already? Pathetic. You can't even last as long as my smallest dragon. The gold landed lightly in front of him, wagging its tail innocently, its claws still glowing faintly from energy absorbed. Issei's face twisted. He shoved himself up shakily, glaring at me. Shut up, Shredder. I smirked wider. Predictable. The dragons chirped softly, their tails swishing as they regrouped around me, glowing faintly brighter than before. Rias finally dismissed her peerage, her tone sharp but weary. Rest. Tomorrow we'll push harder again. They nodded weakly, their bodies trembling with fatigue as they trudged back inside. I turned lazily away, my grin unshakable, my dragons perched proudly across my shoulders. Perfect, I muttered. Chapter 33, Brothers' Complaints. The evening sun hung low in the sky, painting the courtyard in muted gold. The air was heavy with the smell of sweat and scorched wood, the ground littered with broken dummies and splintered targets. Rias's peerage looked drained. Kaiba stood with his blade lowered at his side, his posture still disciplined but his shoulders tense with fatigue. Konako crouched low, her fists loose, her breathing sharp but steady. Akeno floated just above the dirt, her smile faint but her expression tight, sparks fading slowly from her fingertips. And Issei. He lay flat on the ground, panting heavily, his chest rising and falling in sharp bursts. His shirt clung to him with sweat, his fists trembling weakly at his sides. He hadn't lasted half as long as the others. I leaned lazily against the wall, arms folded, my grin firmly in place. My dragons perched proudly across my shoulders and arms, glowing faintly from the energy they had absorbed during their sparring earlier. The original wagged its tail softly. The gold chirped faintly, resting its head against my shoulder. The green sniffed quietly at the air. The blue blinked slowly, calm. The white pressed closer to me, silent as always. I smirked, calling across the yard. Pathetic, Issei. You're on the ground while my flock is brighter than ever. Doesn't that sting? Issei forced himself halfway up, glaring at me through sweat and exhaustion. His voice cracked as he shouted, "Shut up, Shredder." I laughed loudly, cheerful. You'll say that until the day you collapse for good. Rhea stepped forward, her crimson eyes sharp but tired. Enough for today. Everyone rest. We'll begin again tomorrow. Kaiba nodded silently. Konako gave a short nod. Akeno smiled faintly, her voice calm. Yes, Rias. Issei pushed himself shakily to his feet, his fists trembling, his face pale. His eyes darted to Rias quickly. Rias-senpai, wait. She turned to him, her crimson eyes narrowing slightly. What is it, Issei? He clenched his fists tighter, his voice rising. Why do you let him stay here? Why do you let him bring those things? Every day he just stands there, mocking me. He doesn't even help. He just laughs while they get stronger without even trying. Rias's expression didn't change. Shredder isn't my responsibility. He chooses to be here. Issei's voice cracked again. But it's not fair. They get stronger just by existing, and I can't even keep up with the basics. How am I supposed to win like this? I smirked wider, pushing off the wall slightly. You're not. That's the point. You're meant to fail. I was meant to shine. That's the difference. Issei spun toward me instantly, his face twisted. Shut up, Shredder. The gold lifted its head faintly, wagging its tail once. The blue blinked calmly. The white pressed closer. The original wagged softly, cheerful. Rias raised her voice sharply, drawing his attention back. Enough, Issei. Complaining won't change anything. What matters is training, not his presence. Issei froze, his mouth half open, his fists trembling harder. But Rias's crimson eyes narrowed further. No excuses. If you want to fight, then fight. If you want to win, then work. That's all there is to it. His eyes dropped, his fists still clenched but his voice quiet now. Yes, Rias-senpai. I chuckled cheerfully. Perfect. Even she thinks your whining is useless. His face turned red instantly, his eyes snapping toward me again. Shut up, Shredder. I grinned wider, folding my arms. Predictable. The group disbanded slowly, exhaustion plain in every step. Kaiba walked calmly, his sword sheathed, his posture stiff. Konako followed, silent as always, her fists loose at her sides. Akeno lingered briefly, her polite smile faint, before floating lightly inside. Issei trailed behind, his shoulders slumped, his fists trembling at his sides. His eyes darted toward me once more, glaring weakly, before he turned away again. Ria stayed last, her crimson eyes lingering on me briefly. She exhaled quietly before turning and following her team inside. I leaned lazily against the wall again, my grin unchanging. My dragons perched proudly, their scales still faintly glowing from earlier. The original looked up at me, tail wagging. "They're tired." I smirked. "Naturally. That's what happens when you try to chase me." The gold chirped faintly. The green sniffed quietly. The blue blinked once. The white pressed close, silent. I laughed lightly. Perfect. Later that night, the peerage gathered again in the club room. The lamps cast a soft glow across the room, the polished wood shining faintly. Ria sat at the head of the table, her crimson eyes sharp, her posture composed. The others sat scattered around the room, their exhaustion plain but their focus steady. Issei sat slumped, fists clenched, his eyes downcast. He hadn't said much since training ended, but now his voice broke the silence. "Ria-senpai. Can I say something?" She turned her eyes toward him, calm but sharp. "Yes, Issei." His fists tightened further. I don't get it. I train and train, but nothing changes. I'm still the weakest. And every time I look at him his eyes flick toward me, sitting casually in the corner with my dragons perched around me. It feels like I'll never catch up. He doesn't even try, and everything just goes to him. They grow stronger just by standing next to him. Rias's gaze lingered on him quietly. "And?" His voice cracked louder. "And it's not fair. How am I supposed to fight if he's just there mocking me, laughing at me, showing me that I'll never be enough?" I smirked instantly, my grin wide. Finally figured it out. "You'll never be enough. That's why I'm here. To remind you." "Shut up, Shredder," he snapped instantly, his face red. Rias's voice cut through again, sharp and steady. "Issei. Stop. He isn't your problem. Focus on yourself." His eyes widened faintly. "But..." Her crimson gaze hardened. "No excuses. If you want to be useful, then train. If you want to win, then work. Stop wasting time comparing yourself to him. He isn't your responsibility." Issei's fists trembled, his teeth clenched, but he finally looked down, his voice small. "Yes, Ria-senpai." I chuckled cheerfully, leaning back further. "Perfect. Even she admits you're beneath me." His face turned red again, his fists slamming against his knees. "Shut up, Shredder." The dragon stirred faintly, the original wagging its tail softly. The blue blinked calmly. The white pressed against me. The gold tilted its head. The green sniffed faintly. I grinned wider. Predictable. The meeting dragged on, Rias outlining the next day's training with sharp detail. The peerage listened in silence, nodding when necessary, their exhaustion plain but their focus firm. Issei stayed slumped, his fists clenched, his eyes still darting toward me with barely concealed frustration. I stayed relaxed, my grin unchanging, my dragons perched proudly, glowing faintly in the warm light. When the meeting ended, Rias dismissed them all with a sharp command. They filed out slowly, Kaiba calm, Konako silent, Akeno smiling faintly. Issei lingered for a moment, his fists clenched, his eyes glaring at me one last time before turning and stomping out. I laughed lightly, cheerful. Perfect. The dragons chirped faintly in unison, their tails wagging softly. Chapter 34, Watching the Game. The week passed quickly. Every day had been the same, Rias pushing her peerage harder and harder, Issei collapsing daily, the others holding together better but showing signs of strain. My flock sparred whenever they felt like it, absorbing energy naturally, their growth effortless. I didn't bother joining in their desperation. Why would I? I had nothing to prove. And then the day of the game arrived. The venue was grand, conjured with magic that stretched across the space like an endless board. A massive replica of Kua Academy sprawled across the battlefield, its halls and yards recreated perfectly, its walls glowing faintly with the power that sustained it. I didn't stand among them. I had no intention of wasting my time fighting in their little family drama. Instead, I lounged comfortably on the balcony space provided for spectators, my grin fixed, my dragons perched around me like an audience of their own. The original sat at my shoulder, tail wagging softly. The gold perched on the rail in front of me, wings buzzing. The green rested at my side, its head tilted faintly. The blue blinked slowly, perched near my lap. The white curled up on the second seat, pressed quietly against me. The air shimmered faintly as the barrier sealed, the game beginning. Attention, Graphia's voice rang clearly, her tone calm, commanding. This is the official rating game between Riser Phoenix and Rias Gremory. Both sides have entered the field. The game will begin now. The field shimmered again, both peerages appearing at their designated bases. I leaned lazily back in my seat, my smirk unchanging. Perfect. Now let's see how quickly they embarrass themselves. The original looked up at me. We're just watching. I patted its head. Of course. We're above this. Our role is to enjoy the show. The gold chirped happily. Like a game. The green tilted its head faintly. They look tense. The blue blinked. They'll lose. The white said nothing, pressing closer. I chuckled cheerfully. Naturally. The first clash came quickly. Rias's peerage advanced cautiously through the halls of the replica school. Kaiba led the way, blade drawn, his steps steady but sharp. Konako followed at his side, fists raised. Akeno floated slightly above, her lightning sparking faintly at her fingertips. Issei trailed behind, sweating already, his fists trembling as he tried to keep pace. Rias stayed near the back, her crimson aura glowing faintly. On the other side, Riser's peerage moved in force. His queen led a squad of pawns, their movements coordinated, sharp. Riser himself hovered above, his wings spread, flames flickering faintly around him as his smirk stayed unshakable. I smirked wider, gesturing toward the field. Look at that. One side looks like an army. The other looks like a mess. The gold tilted its head, wings buzzing. The fire one looks confident. The green sniffed faintly. The others are many. The blue blinked slowly. Numbers win. The original wagged softly. Rias looks worried. I chuckled. Because she knows she's about to lose. The first engagement exploded in the courtyard. Kaiba rushed forward, his sword clashing against one of Riser's pawns. Sparks flew with every strike, his movements sharp and quick. Konako charged in next, her fists slamming into another with heavy force. Akeno raised her hand high, lightning crackling down across the field, scattering Riser's pawns backward. I smirked, leaning forward slightly. Finally, something worth watching. Issei, however, stumbled at the edge, barely keeping up, his fists swinging clumsily at whoever got too close. I laughed loudly. Pathetic. He's surrounded by women, and he still can't perform. The gold chirped once, wagging its tail. The blue blinked slowly. The green tilted faintly. The white pressed tighter against me. The original wagged cheerfully. The battle raged on, the courtyard cracking under the weight of power colliding. Kaiba's movements grew sharper, his blade clashing again and again as he fought to hold ground. Konako's fists slammed through another pawn, knocking them back hard. Akeno's lightning scattered across the yard, forcing several of Riser's team to retreat. But it wasn't enough. Riser hovered above, his smirk widening as his wings spread wider, flames bursting downward. His pawns regrouped quickly, pressing harder. Rhea stood at the back, her power glowing faintly, but her lips pressed tightly together. I leaned back again, smirking. Perfect. She's already desperate. The original looked up at me. She looks tired. I nodded cheerfully. Naturally. The gold chirped faintly. The fire one is strong. The blue blinked. She can't match him. The green sniffed faintly. The white stayed silent, pressed against me. Minutes dragged into an hour, the field erupting in scattered battles across the replica school. Kaiba clashed with Riser's knight, their blades sparking. Konako slammed against his rook, fists colliding with brute force. Akeno unleashed wave after wave of lightning against his bishop, sparks scattering across the sky. And Issei. He was thrown back again, his body slamming into the dirt, his chest heaving. He struggled to rise, his fists trembling, his eyes wide with fear and desperation. I laughed loudly, my grin unshakable. Pathetic. You can't even stay on your feet. Do you even belong here? The gold tilted its head. He tries hard. I smirked wider. And still fails. That's the difference. The original wagged faintly. The blue blinked slowly. The green sniffed again. The white pressed tighter. The match dragged on, Rias's team fighting with desperate effort, Riser's with overwhelming force. I stayed seated, my grin never fading, my dragons perched proudly, their tails swishing as they watched. Their commentary stayed light, naive, kind, but it only made the contrast sharper. They're trying, the original said softly. They're tired, the green added. He's confident, the gold chirped, nodding toward Riser. He'll win, the blue said flatly. The white stayed silent, pressing closer. I chuckled cheerfully. Perfect. They see what I see. Graphia's voice rang out across the field again, calm and steady. 2 members of Rias Gremari's peerage have been retired. The air grew heavier, the cracks in the foundation clear. I leaned forward slightly, my grin widening. Perfect. The collapse begins. Chapter 35, My Commentary. The courtyard shook with each clash, sparks flying across the stone tiles as blades, fists, and flames collided. The raiding game was fully underway now. I sat comfortably at my balcony seat above it all, legs stretched out, arms behind my head, grin wide. My dragons perched all around me like a personal audience. The original wagged its tail. It's noisy. The gold leaned forward against the rail, wings buzzing. They're hitting hard. The green sniffed faintly. Lots of them. The blue blinked slowly. Too many. The white pressed against my shoulder, quiet as always. I leaned forward, smirking down at the field. Perfect. Now let me explain it for everyone. After all, they're too busy sweating to notice how pathetic they look. Down below, Kaiba clashed against Riser's knight in the open courtyard. Their swords sparked again and again, metal ringing sharp with every collision. Kaiba's movements were precise, quick, steady, but his opponent pressed him harder with raw strength, each blow forcing him a step back. I called out cheerfully, loud enough for the battlefield to hear. Look at that! Our pretty boy knight is fast, sure, but he's getting shoved back like a broom. No amount of elegance matters if you're weaker. Kaiba stiffened faintly at my words but stayed focused, his jaw tightening as he blocked another strike. The gold chirped happily. He's shiny. The original wagged. He's trying. I laughed loudly. Trying doesn't mean winning. He's a pretty decoration swinging a sword. At the far side, Konako fought against one of Riser's rooks. The difference in size was comical. Konako small and low to the ground, her opponent tall and broad. Their fists slammed together, cracks spreading across the stone beneath them. I grinned wider, pointing down at the clash. There. Our quiet little cat versus a wall. She's hitting hard, but all she's doing is bruising her fists on a slab of stone. Konako's expression didn't change, but her strikes grew faster, heavier, her small frame trembling faintly under the pressure. The green tilted its head. She's strong. The blue blinked slowly. Not enough. The gold chirped. She's cute. I chuckled. Cute doesn't win games. She's punching out of her weight class. Overhead, Akeno faced Riser's bishop, sparks dancing across the air as lightning collided with flame. Her hands glowed with crackling energy as she hurled another arc across the sky, splitting through fire and scattering sparks across the courtyard. I leaned forward, clapping once, cheerful. Finally, something worth watching. The sadist in the sky is at least entertaining, throwing sparks everywhere. But look closer, her aim is sloppy, her output uneven. She looks impressive, but she's wasting power. Akeno's polite smile never faltered, but her brow furrowed slightly as she raised her hand again, her lightning flickering brighter. The original wagged. She's glowing. The gold chirped. Loud. The blue blinked. She'll tire. I laughed. Exactly. She'll look amazing right until she drops. And then there was Issei. He stumbled in the background, fists clenched, sweat pouring down his face. He threw a clumsy punch at one of Riser's pawns, who sidestepped easily and shoved him back. He nearly tripped over his own feet, landing hard against the wall before forcing himself upright again. I laughed louder than before, my grin unshakable. And there it is. The star of the show tripping over his own shadow. Look at him. Flailing his fists like a toddler in a tantrum, and still useless. Issei's face twisted instantly, his voice cracking as he screamed, "Shut up, Shredder!" The battlefield paused faintly at his outburst before resuming. I leaned back, grinning wider. Perfect. He heard me. Maybe I'll keep going until he cries. The gold tilted its head. He's sweaty. The original wagged softly. He's upset. The blue blinked slowly. He's weak. The green sniffed faintly. The white pressed closer to me. I chuckled. Even you see it. He's a failure no matter what angle you look at it. Above it all, Riser hovered with his wings spread, flames flaring brightly as he watched his peerage overwhelm Rias's. His smirk was unshakable, his confidence absolute. I raised my voice again, pointing toward him. And there's the groom-to-be. Floating around like a balloon on fire, watching his harem do the work for him. Typical. He's a prince with no spine. Riser's amber eyes flicked upward at me briefly, his smirk twitching slightly before he turned back to the field. I laughed cheerfully. What's wrong, bird boy? Afraid of commentary? Don't worry, I'll keep you honest. The gold chirped faintly. He's glowing too. The original wagged softly. He looks happy. The blue blinked. He hasn't moved. The green sniffed faintly. I smirked. Because he doesn't need to. He lets others fight for him. Weak leaders always do. Time stretched slowly as the battles dragged on. Kaiba clashed again and again, his breathing sharper now, his blade moving slower. Konako's fists grew heavier, her arms trembling. Akeno's lightning flickered weakly, her output clearly dropping. Issei stumbled repeatedly, barely standing. And still, Riser's peerage pressed harder, their numbers and coordination wearing them down. I leaned forward again, smirking wider. See? This is the difference between hard work and reality. No matter how much effort you put in, some people are just better. Like me. Issei shouted instantly, his voice raw. Shut up, Shredder. I grinned wider, waving cheerfully down at him. Still listening, Issei? Good. Maybe you'll remember this when you lose. The gold wagged faintly. He's mad. The original tilted. He's always mad. The blue blinked slowly. He's breaking. I laughed. Perfect. Graphia's voice rang out calmly, echoing across the battlefield. One of Rias Gremari's pawns has been retired. The air grew heavier. I leaned back, smirking. Perfect. The collapse continues. Chapter 36, My Flock's Commentary. The courtyard shook again with each clash. Dust hung in the air, smoke rising where lightning met flame. Rias's peerage was tiring quickly, their bodies showed it in every movement. I stayed comfortable on the balcony above, my grin wide, leaning lazily against the rail. My flock perched around me, their wings buzzing, their tails wagging lightly. The original looked down, its eyes wide. They're running fast. The gold tilted its head, chirping. He's hitting hard. The green sniffed faintly. She's slowing. The blue blinked slowly, calm. He's weaker now. The white pressed against me quietly. I chuckled cheerfully, raising my voice again so the battlefield could hear. See? Even my little ones can see how hopeless this is. No effort will save them. Below, Kaiba was locked in another clash with Riser's knight. The two swords met again and again, sparks scattering across the stone. Kaiba's breathing grew sharper, his blade slower, his stance heavier. The original wagged its tail. He's swinging a lot. The gold chirped brightly. Shiny sword. The blue blinked. He's tired. The green tilted faintly. His steps are heavy. I laughed loudly, clapping once. Exactly. He started elegant, now he's staggering. That's the difference between looking sharp and actually being sharp. Kaiba pressed harder at that moment, his blade slicing through the air faster as though my words had reached him. His opponent blocked easily, forcing him back again. I grinned wider. Perfect. He heard me. Now he's desperate. At the far end, Konako was still slugging it out with Riser's rook. Her fists slammed again and again against the taller devil's arms and torso, each strike leaving faint dents. But her knuckles were bruised now, her breathing sharp, her arms trembling with every punch. The gold tilted its head. She's tiny. The original wagged. She's strong though. The blue blinked slowly. She's slowing. The green sniffed faintly. She won't win. I smirked down at the clash, calling out clearly. Our little cat has claws, but she's bleeding them dry against stone. She'll break herself before she breaks her opponent. Konako's fists slammed harder, her expression unchanging but her movements shakier. I laughed cheerfully. See? She doesn't even deny it. Above, Akeno and Riser's bishop clashed still. Lightning arced across the sky, meeting waves of flame that burned brightly against the false evening light of the field. Sparks scattered with every strike. Akeno's face stayed calm, her smile still faint but her brow furrowed now, her breathing sharper. The original wagged its tail. She's glowing again. The gold chirped happily. Loud. The blue blinked slowly. It's weaker. The green tilted faintly. She's using too much. I leaned against the rail, smirking wider. Exactly. She looks like thunder in the sky, but she's bleeding herself dry with every flash. It's only a show. Akeno flinched faintly as her next strike fizzled short, the arc fading halfway to her opponent. Her polite smile twitched slightly before returning. I clapped once, loud, cheerful. There it is. The cracks. She's sparkling, but her battery's already empty. And then, at the center of it all, Issei. He stumbled again, tripping over the cracked stone, nearly falling flat before catching himself. His fists swung clumsily at a pawn who barely had to dodge. His face was red, drenched in sweat, his chest heaving wildly. The gold tilted its head. He's falling. The original wagged softly. He's trying. The blue blinked slowly. He's weak. The green sniffed faintly. Too slow. The white pressed tighter to me. I laughed louder than before, pointing directly down at him. Perfect. Look at that display swinging wildly, falling over himself, sweating like a faucet. And this is supposed to be the star? He looks more like the clown. Issei's head snapped up toward me, his eyes burning. His voice cracked as he screamed, "Shut up, Shredder!" The entire battlefield paused faintly again before resuming. I smirked wider, waving down cheerfully. Still listening, Issei? Good. Then remember this moment when you're knocked flat again. Above it all, Riser hovered easily, his wings spread wide, his flames glowing brighter. His smirk never faltered as he looked down at the chaos. The original wagged softly. He hasn't moved much. The gold chirped faintly. Fire looks big. The blue blinked. He's calm. The green tilted. Because he's winning. I laughed, pointing up at him. Exactly. Floating like a smug pigeon while his women do all the fighting. He's winning because he doesn't have to lift a finger. Riser's amber eyes flicked upward at me, his smirk twitching faintly again. I grinned wider. What's wrong, bird boy? Afraid the commentary's too accurate? Time dragged, the battlefield cracking under the endless clashes. Kaiba staggered with every block now, his blade trembling faintly. Konako's fists shook as she swung, her arms bruised. Akeno's lightning flickered weakly, barely sparking at times. Issei collapsed to his knees twice, forcing himself up only to stumble again. Meanwhile, Riser's peerage stayed strong, pressing harder, coordinated, steady. I leaned back in my seat, smirking. See? That's the story here. One side sweating blood just to survive, the other barely sweating at all. Hopeless. The original wagged its tail. They're still trying. The gold chirped. Hitting lots. The blue blinked. Doesn't matter. The green sniffed faintly. They'll lose. The white pressed closer to me. I laughed loudly. Even my flocks cheering can't save them. It only makes the gap more obvious. Graphia's voice rang clear across the field, calm as always. One rook of Rias Gremari's peerage has been retired. The sound echoed like a hammer. I leaned forward, smirking wider. Perfect. One piece down, the wall is crumbling. Issei froze at the announcement, his fists trembling harder, his eyes wide. His head snapped toward Rias, desperation plain. I called out loudly. Look at him. Already panicking at one loss. He doesn't even realize more are coming. That's what weakness looks like. Issei screamed again, voice raw. Shut up, Shredder. The gold tilted. He's mad again. The original wagged softly. Always mad. The blue blinked slowly. It makes him weaker. I laughed cheerfully. Exactly. His anger's as useless as his fists. The game stretched on, every clash heavier, every movement slower. Rias's team strained under the pressure, their bodies faltering one by one. Riser's side stayed steady, his flames burning brighter as his smirk widened. I stayed comfortable, my grin unchanging, my flock perched proudly, their innocent commentary blending with my sharper words. The original wagged. It's still going. The gold chirped. They're loud. The green sniffed faintly. Not for long. The blue blinked slowly. The white pressed closer. I chuckled lightly. Perfect. Chapter 37, Rias breaks patience. The battlefield groaned under the strain of combat. Cracks spider-webbed across the courtyard, dust hung thick in the air, and smoke curled faintly where lightning met flame. Riser's peerage pressed steadily forward. His knight drove Kaiba back step by step. His rook towered over Konako, blocking every strike without faltering. His bishop matched Akeno's lightning with controlled bursts of fire. And Issei stumbled and swung wildly, drenched in sweat, his body trembling with exhaustion. Above it all, Riser hovered easily, his smirk fixed, his wings glowing faintly as flames licked across his shoulders. And above that, I leaned comfortably over the balcony rail, smirking wide, with my flock perched around me. The original wagged its tail gently. They're still fighting. The gold chirped faintly, eyes wide. So noisy. The green sniffed, tilting faintly. She's slowing again. The blue blinked calmly. He's weaker now. The white pressed silently against my side. I clapped once, my voice loud and clear. Exactly. Look at them. They're dragging their feet like corpses, while his girls stay steady. She's leading a graveyard. Kaiba faltered briefly at my words, his jaw tightening as he blocked another strike. Konako's fists slammed harder, her face unchanged but her arms trembling. Akeno's lightning crackled unevenly, her polite smile twitching slightly. Issei screamed as he swung another clumsy punch, missing completely and stumbling forward into the dirt. I laughed loudly, cheerful. Perfect. The clown falls again. Tell me, Rias, was this your big plan? To embarrass yourself in front of everyone? At that moment, her voice cut across the battlefield. Enough. Everyone froze for half a second, even Riser raised a brow faintly at her sudden shout. Her crimson eyes snapped upward at me, her voice sharp and uncharacteristically loud. Shredder. Stop talking. The air thickened faintly, the demand echoing across the field. Her peerage looked toward her with surprise, and even Graphia's composed face twitched slightly in reaction. I smirked wider, leaning forward over the rail. Finally. I was wondering when you'd break. The original tilted its head. She's mad. The gold chirped softly. Loud. The green sniffed faintly. She looks tired too. The blue blinked slowly. She's losing. The white pressed closer. I raised my voice again, cheerful. What's wrong, Rias? Don't like hearing the truth while you're falling apart. Her fists clenched at her sides, her crimson aura glowing faintly brighter. You're distracting my peerage. Stay silent or leave. I laughed loudly, throwing my head back. Distracting? Please. I'm the only one telling them what's real. You're just feeding them lies about hope while they collapse. Her jaw tightened visibly, her crimson eyes narrowing further. I pointed directly down at Issei, my grin stretching wider. Look at him. He's on the ground again, sweating like a pig, fists too weak to matter. And you still call him your pawn? He's dead weight. Issei's face twisted instantly, his voice cracking. Shut up, Shredder. I chuckled. Predictable. Kaiba swung harder, his blade sparking again as he clashed with Riser's knight. He tried to ignore me, but the slight tremor in his hand betrayed his distraction. I leaned forward, smirking. And there's your knight. Fast, elegant, handsome but useless against brute strength. He's a glass sword. Pretty to look at, easy to break. Kaiba's jaw clenched tighter, his strikes sharper but shakier. The gold chirped faintly. He's shiny though. The original wagged. He tries. The blue blinked. It won't matter. I chuckled. Exactly. Konako's fist slammed into Riser's rook again, leaving faint cracks in the stone-like body. But her small frame shook visibly with each hit, her breathing heavy now, sweat dripping down her forehead. I called out cheerfully. And the little cat? Punching walls with kitten paws. She'll break her bones before she breaks him. Konako's eyes flicked faintly upward at me, her fists tightening before she slammed another strike. The green sniffed. She's strong still. The gold tilted. But tiny. The blue blinked slowly. It's useless. The original wagged faintly. I smirked. Perfect. Above, Akeno's lightning flared again, sparks scattering wildly across the sky. Her polite smile stayed, but her breathing sharpened as her aura flickered unevenly. I raised my voice, cheerful. And the sadist in the sky. Flashy, loud, bright but draining herself empty with every spark. Look at her face. She's smiling to hide how much it hurts. Akeno's brow furrowed faintly, her hand trembling as she hurled another arc that fizzled short. The original wagged. She's glowing still. The gold chirped. But smaller now. The blue blinked. She's fading. The green sniffed faintly. I chuckled. Even my flock can see you breaking, Rias. And you told me to stay quiet. Rias's crimson aura flared brighter, her voice sharper than before. Shredder. I won't say it again. Stay silent. The battlefield froze faintly again, every eye flicking toward me. I leaned even further over the rail, grinning wide, bold. And if I don't? What can you do? You can't even handle him. I gestured at Riser hovering lazily above. And you think you can handle me? Don't make me laugh. Her jaw tightened, her hands trembling faintly at her sides. I smirked wider, my voice bright. Focus on your fight, Rias. Or is your pride too fragile to handle commentary? The original wagged softly. She's really mad. The gold chirped faintly. Red face. The blue blinked. She's cracking. The green sniffed faintly. The white stayed pressed against me, silent. I chuckled cheerfully. Perfect. The battle resumed, though slower now. My words lingered in the air, heavy against them. Kaiba's swings grew more desperate, his steps unsteady. Konako's fists shook as she struck, bruised and weakening. Akeno's lightning flickered faintly, her smile twitching. Issei stumbled again, his fists useless. And Riser, his smirk only widened, his flames glowing brighter as he hovered above, untouchable. I leaned back lazily, my grin unshakable. Perfect. One side's collapsing, the other's comfortable. And I'm the only one honest enough to say it out loud. Chapter 38, Pigeon with Flames. The courtyard was split with chaos. Dust clouds rolled through broken walls, the air thick with smoke and sparks. The clash of Kaiba and Riser's knight rang like steel bells. Konako's fists cracked against her towering opponent. Akeno's lightning fizzled as fire pushed back harder and harder. And then there was Issei, stumbling again, fists wild, sweat soaking through his shirt. Above it all, Riser hovered with ease, his wings spread, flames flickering lazily across his arms. He looked like he was floating in comfort, untouched, while his peerage bore the weight of the work. And then there was me lounging comfortably against the balcony rail, grin unshakable, my dragons perched proudly around me. The original wagged its tail softly. They're all noisy. The gold chirped faintly, wings buzzing. He's glowing a lot. The green sniffed faintly. He hasn't moved much. The blue blinked slowly. Because he doesn't need to. The white pressed silently against me. I leaned forward, smirking. Exactly. Look at him floating around like a pigeon set on fire. A prince who lets his girls do all the work. That's your fiancé, Rias. Embarrassing. This time, though, Riser reacted. His amber eyes snapped upward, his smirk widening, his voice carrying easily across the field. And who are you to talk, brat? Sitting up there like a coward, hiding behind your little pets. At least I lead. You only watch. The battlefield stilled faintly at his words. Rias's peerage looked up, sweat dripping, eyes darting between me and him. Even Rias herself glanced upward, her crimson eyes sharp. I leaned over the rail further, my grin never wavering. Finally. The bird speaks. Took you long enough, pigeon boy. The original tilted its head. He's talking now. The gold chirped. Loud. The blue blinked slowly. He's mad. The green sniffed faintly. I raised my voice, cheerful. Lead? Don't make me laugh. You're hovering in the sky like a balloon while they bleed for you. You call that leadership? That's babysitting. Riser's smirk twitched faintly, his flames sparking brighter at his shoulders. You're nothing. You haven't even stepped onto the field. If you were worth anything, you'd be down here fighting. But you stay there, because deep down, you know you'd burn the second you faced me. I laughed loudly, clapping once. Burn? Please. I could sneeze and snuff you out. The only reason I'm up here is because this isn't my circus. Why waste my time in your family drama when you're already losing the plot? The original wagged faintly. He looks madder now. The gold chirped, wings buzzing faster. Glowing more. The blue blinked slowly. He's irritated. The green tilted faintly. Not calm anymore. The white stayed silent, pressing close. I smirked wider, my tone still bright. Look at you, flapping your wings like you're above it all, when really you're just afraid someone like me might make you look small. You're not worried about Rias's team. You're worried about me stealing your spotlight. Riser's smirk faltered for a second, his amber eyes narrowing. Bold words from a child who hides behind dragons. Without them, you're nothing. I laughed again, cheerful and loud. Without them? You really think I need them to put you in your place? They're not shields. They're ornaments. I just like surrounding myself with things that shine brighter than your whole peerage. The original wagged happily. The gold chirped proudly. The blue blinked. The green sniffed faintly. The white pressed tighter. Riser's flames flared hotter, his smirk pulled tighter across his face. I smirked wider. Careful. You're starting to look more like a torch than a lord. On the battlefield, Kaiba gritted his teeth, swinging sharper at Riser's knight. Konako's fists slammed harder, her arms shaking. Akeno's lightning flickered weaker, her polite smile fading slightly. Issei stumbled again, catching himself on cracked stone. They were distracted. The tension between me and Riser hung heavy, pulling every eye upward. Rias's crimson aura flared brighter, her expression dark. But she said nothing. Riser called up again, his voice sharper now. If you're so confident, come down here and prove it. Unless all you can do is talk. I leaned back casually, still grinning. Prove it? Why would I step down for you? You're not worth my time. You're just a spoiled bird hiding behind a dowry. You need this marriage because it's the only way anyone takes you seriously. Riser's eyes narrowed sharply, his flames burning brighter. His peerage glanced up at him nervously, but he didn't look at them. His focus stayed locked on me. The original wagged softly. He's really mad now. The gold chirped faintly. He's glowing big. The blue blinked slowly. He forgot the fight. The green sniffed faintly. He's distracted. The white stayed pressed close. I smirked wider, cheerful. Perfect. Look at you, Riser. You wanted to mock me, but now you're the one losing focus. While you flap your wings and pout, your pieces are doing all the real work. That's leadership? That's royalty? Pathetic. Graphia's voice rang across the field, steady. One pawn of Rias Gremari's peerage has been retired. The announcement hit heavy, echoing across the courtyard. I leaned over the rail, grinning wider. See? Even with all your numbers, you need me to keep the audience entertained. Without me, this is just a slow, boring loss for Rias. I'm the only reason anyone's paying attention. Riser's flames burned brighter, his amber eyes locked on me, his smirk straining. I chuckled. Perfect. Chapter 39, The Last Clash. The battlefield was wrecked by the time it came down to the end. The replica school courtyard had become little more than cracked stone and broken walls. Dust swirled in the air, smoke rose faintly from shattered dummies, and the last flickers of magic glowed faintly from ruined wards. Most of the pieces were gone. Kaiba, Akeno, and Konako had all been forced into retirement. Riser's extra pawns, his bishop, his rook gone as well. What remained was Riser himself, floating above with wings burning bright, and his queen at his side, standing poised and calm with sharp eyes. And against them Rias, her crimson aura still glowing faintly but her face lined with exhaustion, and Issei, hunched forward, fists trembling, sweat pouring down his face. I leaned comfortably against the rail of the spectator balcony, my grin wide, my dragons perched all around me. The original wagged its tail softly. Only a few left. The gold chirped faintly. It's quiet now. The green sniffed. They're tired. The blue blinked slowly. It's the end. The white pressed close to me, silent as always. I clapped once, cheerful. Perfect. The big finale. Our princess and her clown versus a pigeon on fire and his ice queen. This is going to be fun. Rias stood tall despite her exhaustion, her crimson hair flowing faintly in the heated air. She raised her hand, her aura glowing brighter for a moment as she summoned her power. Issei. Stay with me. We can't lose now. Issei panted, forcing himself upright, his eyes wide but shaking. Why yes, Rias senpai. Riser's queen stepped forward, her stance sharp, her expression calm but confident. Her magic flared brightly, sharp arcs of fire lacing her hands. This ends here. And above, Riser spread his wings wide, his smirk unshakable. Flames danced around him as his voice carried easily across the field. I told you from the beginning, Rias. You never stood a chance. I laughed loudly, my grin stretching wider. There it is. The final act. He's still hovering like a pigeon, his queen doing all the actual fighting. Typical. Riser's amber eyes flicked briefly upward toward me, his smirk twitching, but he didn't reply. The original wagged softly. He's glowing more. The gold chirped faintly. She looks mad. The blue blinked. They'll clash. The green sniffed. I chuckled. Exactly. Watch closely. The clash began immediately. Rias surged forward, her crimson aura flaring as she hurled a blast of power toward Riser's queen. The queen countered instantly, flames erupting in her hands, colliding with Rias's magic midair. The explosion rattled the cracked courtyard, smoke and sparks scattering. At the same time, Issei charged forward with a loud shout, his fists clenched as he swung wildly at Riser himself. Riser flapped his wings once, flames bursting around him as he sidestepped easily, his smirk never fading. Pathetic. He countered with a burst of fire, slamming into Issei's chest and throwing him back across the cracked ground. I laughed loudly, clapping once. Perfect. The clown charges, the pigeon dodges, and down he goes again. Tell me, Issei, do you enjoy lying on the ground? Issei coughed heavily, forcing himself up again, his eyes burning. Shut up, Shredder. I waved cheerfully. Still listening. Good. Don't forget who's keeping you honest. Rias and the Queen clashed again. Flames and crimson power collided, sparks flying across the courtyard. Rias's expression tightened, her breathing heavier, but she didn't falter. Her queen pressed harder, her movements sharp, her control steady, forcing Rias back step by step. The original wagged. She's glowing bright. The gold chirped. But smaller. The blue blinked slowly. She's weaker. The green sniffed. The queen is sharper. I smirked wide. Exactly. Our princess is forcing it, but she's already spent. The ice queen beside the pigeon isn't even sweating. Rias gritted her teeth, forcing more power into her next strike. The crimson blast shoved back the queen for a moment, but her aura flickered weakly after. I laughed loudly. There it is. A single push and she's drained again. That's what desperation looks like. On the other side, Issei forced himself forward again, fists clenched. I won't lose. He charged once more at Riser, swinging wildly. His blows were clumsy, his stance off, his breathing ragged, but he didn't stop. Riser sighed, his smirk unchanging. He raised his hand lazily, fire swirling around his palm. Pointless. The flames burst outward, slamming into Issei's chest again, knocking him flat against the stone. His shirt smoked faintly as he groaned, barely pushing himself back up. I leaned forward, smirking wide. Perfect. The clown tumbles again. How many times does it take before you realize you're only a distraction? The original tilted. He keeps standing. The gold chirped. But falls again. The blue blinked. Weak. The green sniffed faintly. I chuckled cheerfully. Exactly. He's stubborn, not strong. That's why he's on the ground. Rias pressed harder against the queen, her crimson aura flickering wildly. I won't give up. The queen raised her hand calmly, flames sparking. Pointless. Their blasts collided again, the explosion shaking the courtyard. Smoke covered the field for a moment, then cleared to show Rias kneeling slightly, her aura dim, her breathing ragged. I smirked wider, calling out loudly. Perfect. The princess is on her knees, the clown is crawling, and the pigeon still hasn't broken a sweat. This is the definition of hopeless. Rias's fists clenched tighter, her jaw trembling faintly. Issei forced himself back up beside her, his chest heaving. Rias-senpai. I'll fight, with you. Riser floated above, his flames glowing brighter. His smirk stretched wider. Fight? You can't even stand. I laughed cheerfully, clapping once. Finally something we agree on, pigeon boy. The courtyard grew silent for a moment. Dust hung in the air, the only sounds their ragged breaths and the crackle of fire. Then it broke. Riser's queen stepped forward sharply, flames blazing brighter. Rias pushed back with what remained of her power. Sparks erupted as they clashed, the strain plain on Rias's face. At the same time, Issei charged again, shouting loudly, his fist swinging once more at Riser. Riser sighed, unimpressed, his flames bursting again as he raised his hand lazily. The collision shook the courtyard one last time. Graphia's voice rang out, calm, steady. Rias Gremory has lost the match. The winner is Riser Phoenix. The air fell silent except for the crackle of fading flames. I leaned back against the rail, smirking wide. Perfect. The princess collapses, the clown falls, and the pigeon struts away with his pride. What a finale! The original wagged softly. It's over. The gold chirped faintly. Quiet now. The green sniffed. They lost. The blue blinked slowly. It was obvious. The white pressed against me silently. I chuckled cheerfully. Exactly. I told you from the beginning. They were never going to win. Chapter 40, her glance upward. The smoke from the last clash lingered across the courtyard. The stone ground was broken, cracked, and scorched black from repeated strikes. Dust floated in the air, catching faint light from the magical barrier above the battlefield. Riser hovered still, his flames dimming slowly, his smirk never faltering. His queen stood at his side, calm and steady, her eyes fixed on the wrecked figures across from them. And those figures Rias and Issei were done. Rias knelt on one knee, her crimson aura flickering weakly around her before fading completely. Her breath came sharp, heavy, her hand pressed against the ground for support. Sweat dripped down her forehead, strands of her crimson hair sticking to her face. Issei lay flat beside her, his chest heaving violently, his fists limp against the stone. His shirt was torn and singed, his skin bruised, his face twisted in frustration and exhaustion. Graphia's voice rang clear across the silence. The game has ended. The winner is Riser Phoenix. The barrier shimmered faintly above, sealing the result into place. I leaned lazily against the balcony rail, my grin wide, my dragons perched all around me. The original wagged its tail softly. It's really over. The gold chirped faintly, wings buzzing. Quiet now. The green sniffed. They're broken. The blue blinked slowly. They lost. The white pressed against me silently. I smirked wide, calling cheerfully. Perfect. The princess on her knees, the clown on his back, and the pigeon strutting overhead. What a picture! Riser raised his hand high, flames sparking faintly as his voice boomed across the courtyard. As expected. This was no contest. You should have surrendered before you embarrassed yourself, Rias. His queen remained silent, though her faint smile confirmed her agreement. I chuckled loudly, waving a hand. Don't fool yourself, bird boy. That wasn't impressive, it was inevitable. You didn't win. They lost. Riser's smirk twitched faintly, his flames burning brighter for a moment, but he didn't reply. Rias slowly pushed herself to her feet, her crimson eyes faint but sharp. She didn't look at Riser, not at first. Instead, her gaze lifted upward. Toward me. The contact was brief, only a few seconds, but it was unmistakable. Her crimson eyes locked with mine across the ruined courtyard. Sweat dripped down her face. Her lips pressed together tightly. Her body trembled faintly from exhaustion, but her expression held more than just fatigue. Frustration. Shame. Humiliation. And I grinned wider, leaning further over the rail. Finally, I called down cheerfully. You admit it. By looking at me instead of him, you're saying it yourself, he's not the problem. You are. The original tilted its head. She's looking here. The gold chirped. At you. The green sniffed faintly. She's angry. The blue blinked. She knows. The white pressed closer silently. I smirked wide. Exactly. You're not angry because you lost to him. You're angry because I was right the whole time. You never had a chance. Rias's crimson eyes narrowed faintly at my words, her fists clenching tighter at her sides. Issei groaned from the ground beside her, his voice cracked and raw. Rias-senpai. I'm sorry. She glanced at him briefly before looking back up toward me again, her lips pressed tighter. I laughed loudly, clapping once. Perfect. Even your pawn apologizes for being useless. At least he knows his place. Do you? Rias's jaw tightened, her aura flickering faintly again before fading. I tilted my head, still cheerful. You spent all this time training, planning, sweating, and for what? To kneel on cracked stone while your clown gasps like a fish? That's leadership? That's a king. Her crimson eyes stayed locked on me, even as her fists trembled. The original wagged faintly. She's upset. The gold chirped softly. Red face. The blue blinked slowly. She failed. The green sniffed. She knows. The white pressed tighter. I leaned further over the rail, my grin never fading. Look at you. Too weak to stand tall, too proud to admit it. That glance up here said everything you know. I'm above you. You lost, and you wanted me to see it. Rias finally tore her gaze away, her face hardening as she looked down at Issei. Riser floated lower, his smirk wider as he approached her. Now, Rias, do you understand? You can't defy this marriage. You belong to me. Her jaw clenched, but she didn't reply. I laughed loudly, waving again. Listen to him. He thinks beating your broken team makes him worthy of you. As if you were worth much more like this. A king who can't stand, a pawn who can't punch, and a peerage that couldn't keep pace. Riser's smirk twitched faintly at my words, his flames sparking brighter, but he kept his focus on Rias. Grafia descended lightly into the courtyard, her expression calm but firm. The result is decided. Riser Phoenix is the victor. Rias exhaled sharply, her eyes dropping as she lowered her head faintly. And yet before the smoke cleared completely she glanced up at me one more time. I grinned wider, cheerful. Perfect. You can't look away, can you? You know who really stood above this match? Not Riser. Not you. Me. The original wagged. She looked again. The gold chirped. At you again. The blue blinked. She can't stop. The green sniffed faintly. She hates it. The white pressed against me silently. I chuckled. Exactly. Remember this, Rias. You lost because you thought you mattered. But next to me, you never did. Chapter 41, Grafia ends it. The magical air of the barrier shimmered faintly, still pulsing with the weight of Grafia's earlier declaration. The winner is Riser Phoenix. The words hung heavy in the space, heavier than any blast of magic or wall of flame that had torn through the battlefield. Riser floated lower now, his wings beating lightly, the glow of his fire softening as though even he didn't need to waste more energy. His smirk remained sharp, smug. His queen stood poised just behind him, her breathing steady, her face unreadable. Across from them, Rias remained on her knees. Her crimson aura had completely vanished. Her fists trembled faintly, but she had no strength left to rise. Sweat dripped from her face as her crimson eyes flicked upward again for only a brief moment before lowering, heavy with humiliation. Issei was sprawled across the cracked ground, his chest heaving violently as though every breath cut into him. His fists were limp against the stone, his body refusing to respond to the desperate commands in his mind. His face was twisted with anger and shame. And above them all, I remained relaxed. I leaned lazily against the balcony rail, arms folded across my chest, my grin wide and unchanging. My dragons perched all around me, tails wagging or wings twitching faintly, their eyes fixed on the wrecked field below. The original wagged its tail softly. It's finished. The gold chirped faintly. They can't move. The green sniffed. She's still down. The blue blinked slowly. He's flat. The white pressed quietly against my shoulder. I laughed loudly, the sound carrying easily across the courtyard. Perfect. The princess on her knees, the clown eating stone, and the pigeon still smirking. This is exactly the ending everyone should have expected. Riser's amber eyes flicked upward at me, his smirk twitching faintly. Rias's fists clenched tighter, though she didn't rise. Issei groaned weakly, his eyes burning toward the ground. Before any words could fly further, Grafia descended gracefully into the courtyard. Her silver hair caught the magical light as she landed between the two sides, her maid uniform untouched by the chaos that had destroyed the rest of the field. Her expression was calm, perfectly composed, her tone sharp but quiet. The match has concluded. There will be no further engagement. Riser tilted his head faintly, his smirk still smug. Of course, Grafia. There was no engagement left to be had. It was never a contest. Rias's jaw clenched at his words, her lips pressing tightly together. She lowered her head further, refusing to meet his eyes. I raised my voice, cheerful. Don't pat yourself on the back, pigeon boy. You didn't win because you were strong. You won because they were weak. There's a difference. Riser's smirk twitched faintly, his flames sparking brighter around his shoulders. Grafia's eyes shifted briefly toward me, her expression calm but steady. Shredder. This was not your match. Stay your commentary. I grinned wider, leaning forward over the rail. Stay my commentary? Grafia, if I don't speak, no one tells the truth. Look down there, one side broken, one side smug, neither worth the noise they made. The original tilted its head softly. She's stopping it. The gold chirped faintly. She sounds calm. The green sniffed. She wants quiet. The blue blinked slowly. You're not quiet. The white pressed closer silently. I chuckled. Exactly. I don't do quiet. Grafia ignored me after that, her focus shifting back to the players. Rias Gremory. You fought hard, but your loss is clear. Riser Phoenix, your victory is formally recognized. The match is complete. Rias flinched faintly at the words, her fists trembling harder against the stone. Riser raised his hand lazily, his smirk wide. As it should be. Rias is mine, and now it's proven. I laughed loudly, clapping once. Mine? Proven? Don't kid yourself, bird boy. You proved nothing. She's crawling because she never had strength, not because you're impressive. You're still just a pigeon on fire. Riser's flames flared brighter for a moment, his smirk stiff. His queen glanced at him faintly but said nothing. Grafia's eyes narrowed slightly. Enough. The result is final. There will be no more. Issei groaned again, pushing weakly at the stone as though he could still rise. His voice was broken, ragged. Rias. He couldn't finish the words. His fists collapsed against the stone again, his body refusing to move. Rias turned her head slightly toward him, her crimson eyes dim, her lips pressed tight. She didn't answer. I leaned forward, smirking wider. Perfect. The pawn tries to speak, but even his words collapse. Tell me, Rias, is this the team you were proud of? One who can't stand, one who can't speak. Her head lowered further, her crimson hair falling across her face. The original wagged softly. She's looking down. The gold chirped faintly. Sad. The blue blinked slowly. Defeated. The green sniffed. The white stayed silent. I laughed again, bright and cheerful. Exactly. This is the site of failure. Grafia lifted her hand, magic gathering faintly at her palm. The match is over. Everyone will be returned shortly. Prepare yourselves. The barrier shimmered faintly, pulsing brighter as the teleportation magic activated slowly. Riser's smirk returned in full, his flames dimming as he lowered his arms. He didn't look at Rias anymore. He didn't need to. Rias stayed kneeling, her fists trembling, her eyes hidden beneath her crimson hair. Issei groaned faintly, still sprawled across the stone. And me? I stayed smiling. I raised my hand cheerfully, waving down at them as the light of teleportation swelled. Perfect. Don't forget this image, Rias. You kneeling, your pawn flat, and me above it all, laughing. Burn it into your mind. Her fists clenched tighter, but she didn't look up. The original wagged. They're leaving. The gold chirped faintly. It's ending. The green sniffed. They lost. The blue blinked slowly. They'll remember. The white pressed closer silently. I grinned wide. Perfect. The light brightened, consuming the ruined courtyard piece by piece. The smoke, the dust, the cracked stone all faded in the glow of teleportation. When it cleared, the battlefield was gone. Chapter 42, A New Challenge. The teleportation glow faded, the ruined battlefield dissolving into nothing. In its place came the grand marble hall where spectators and nobles alike had gathered. The high ceiling glistened with faint magical light, banners of red and gold fluttered gently, and the polished floors reflected the figures as they reappeared one by one. Riser landed with his wings folding back proudly, his queen at his side, his smirk wide. His peerage appeared behind him, battered but standing, their eyes fixed on their victorious king. Rias and her peerage materialized across the hall. Rias stood still, her fists trembling faintly at her sides, her crimson eyes lowered. Issei appeared slumped, still panting heavily, his shirt burned, his skin bruised. The others stood in silence, the weight of defeat heavy on their shoulders. I leaned lazily against a nearby pillar, my dragons perched proudly around me. My grin was wide and unchanging. The original wagged its tail softly. We're back. The gold chirped faintly. It's shiny here. The green sniffed. Everyone's quiet. The blue blinked slowly. They're ashamed. The white pressed close against me silently. I laughed cheerfully, my voice echoing through the hall. Perfect. The losers look at the floor, the winners preen their feathers, and I get the best seat to enjoy it all. Several devils in the audience glanced my way, frowning faintly at my volume, but no one stopped me. Riser stepped forward, his amber eyes glinting as his smirk sharpened. His voice carried loudly. So, little brat, you've done nothing but talk through the entire match. Tell me, are you capable of more than words? The audience stirred faintly, quiet murmurs spreading across the hall. Rias's eyes flicked upward for a brief second before dropping again. Issei clenched his fists faintly, his head lowered, but he didn't speak. I tilted my head, smirking wide. Capable of more than words? I don't need to prove it, pigeon boy. My words alone left you twitching. But if you're desperate to be embarrassed in front of your own flock, I'll allow it. The original tilted. He's challenging you. The gold chirped faintly. He looks mad again. The blue blinked slowly. He wants to fight. The green sniffed. The white pressed against me silently. I chuckled. Exactly. He's begging for it. Riser's flames flickered faintly around his arms, his wings spreading slightly as he raised his voice further. Then prove it. Fight me here and now. If you win, I'll drop this talk of Rias. If you lose, his smirk widened cruelly. Then one of those little creatures of yours will belong to me. The room stirred louder at his words. Several nobles leaned forward with interest, others whispered, some smirked. The thought of one of my dragons being claimed was enough to stir excitement among them. Rias's head snapped upward, her crimson eyes sharp. Riser. Graphia's calm voice cut her off, steady and precise. You would wager personal pieces outside of an official match? Such a duel carries no formal weight. Riser smirked, his flames burning brighter. Then it will be informal. I need no contract to humiliate this loudmouth. I leaned forward off the pillar, my grin unchanging. Humiliate me? Please. You're still smoldering from the things I said. But fine, let's play. The original wagged faintly. You're agreeing. The gold chirped brightly. Fight. The blue blinked slowly. He'll regret it. The green sniffed. He thinks he'll win. The white pressed closer silently. I smirked wider, cheerful. Of course he thinks that. That's why it'll be fun. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the audience. The hall grew heavier with expectation, all eyes locked between me and Riser. Riser's smirk sharpened, his flames burning higher as he stepped toward the center of the hall. Then come, boy. Let's see if you can back your mouth. I stretched my arms casually, walking forward slowly, my grin never faltering. My dragons flitted around me, perched proudly, their tails swishing faintly. The original wagged softly. You'll fight now. The gold chirped faintly. Shiny floor. The blue blinked slowly. He's glowing more. The green sniffed faintly. The white pressed close. I chuckled cheerfully, my voice loud. Perfect. The pigeon wants to peck. Let's clip his wings. Graphia raised her hand slightly, her silver eyes sharp. This duel is not sanctioned. It will not affect the outcome of the rating game. Riser smirked wider. It doesn't need to. This is personal. I nodded cheerfully. Exactly. No titles, no paperwork, just me showing him what a real fight looks like. The audience leaned closer, the tension thick. Rias's fists trembled at her sides, her crimson eyes fixed on me now. Shredder. I smirked wider, raising a hand cheerfully toward her. Don't look so desperate, Rias. I'm not saving you. I'm entertaining myself. Her jaw tightened, her eyes narrowing faintly. Issei clenched his fists harder, his teeth grinding, but he said nothing. Riser spread his wings fully, flames bursting brighter as he raised his hand. Then prepare yourself, brat. When I'm finished, one of those pets will be mine. The original tilted. He wants us. The gold chirped softly. We stay with you. The blue blinked slowly. He won't win. The green sniffed faintly. The white pressed tighter against me silently. I laughed loudly, my grin stretching. Hear that, flock? He thinks he can touch you. That's adorable. The audience's murmurs grew louder as the flames around Riser's body swelled brighter, the heat filling the hall. I raised my arms slightly, cheerful. All right, pigeon boy. Let's make this quick. Chapter 43, The Pigeon Strikes. The marble hall held its breath. The audience of devils lining the grand chamber leaned forward, their whispers dying down as the two of us faced each other in the center. The polished stone gleamed faintly under magical lights, banners of Gremory and Fennex families swaying in the still air. Riser stood tall across from me, his amber eyes sharp, his smirk twitching as flames began to gather across his arms. His wings spread wide, the faint sound of fire crackling at the tips. His queen stood behind him, calm and silent, though her eyes flicked faintly between us. Rias and her peerage stood off to the side. Rias's crimson eyes were locked on me, her fists tight at her sides, her face pale but unflinching. Issei clenched his fists so hard they shook, his teeth grinding audibly. The others stood in silence, battered but watchful. And me? I stretched my arms above my head casually, my grin wide, my dragons perched happily around me as though we were at a festival instead of a duel. The original wagged its tail softly. It's starting. The gold chirped faintly. He looks angry. The green sniffed. He's glowing too much. The blue blinked slowly. It's just fire. The white pressed silently against me. I chuckled cheerfully, my voice carrying easily across the hall. Perfect. He's worked himself up. Let's see if he can do more than flap his wings and smolder. Riser's smirk sharpened, his flames bursting brighter across his body. He lifted both arms high, fire swirling between his palms until it erupted outward in a massive wave. Burn, he shouted, his voice echoing through the chamber. The firestorm roared across the marble floor, a torrent of blazing heat that lit the entire hall in orange and red. The air itself warped under the intensity, the polished floor blackening as the wave sped toward me. Gasps spread through the audience as the inferno consumed half the chamber in seconds. The heat washed over everything, the sheer force shaking even the magical barriers that lined the hall. I didn't move. I tilted my head, smirking as the flames raced toward me. Really? That's it. The original wagged its tail. Big fire. The gold chirped brightly. Hot. The green sniffed faintly. Sloppy. The blue blinked slowly. Too wide. The white pressed closer to me. I chuckled loudly, raising my voice so he'd hear it over the roar. A giant wall of fire? That's your big opener? I've seen campfires with more creativity. The flames crashed into me, or rather, around me. The torrent of heat surged and split, swirling wildly as if it had struck an invisible wall. Smoke hissed, fire bent, and when the wave finally dissipated, I stood untouched. Not a hair singed, not a scratch burned. My grin was still wide, cheerful. The audience gasped again, voices rising in disbelief. Rias's eyes widened faintly. Issei's jaw dropped, his fists trembling harder. Even Akeno's composed face faltered slightly. I raised both arms outward, smirking wide. Ta-da! The pigeon breathes fire, and I'm still standing pretty. Is this supposed to impress me? Riser's smirk faltered, his amber eyes narrowing as his flames flickered brighter. The original wagged happily. You're fine. The gold chirped faintly. Shiny still. The blue blinked slowly. It did nothing. The green sniffed. Too weak. The white pressed closer. I laughed loudly, clapping once. Exactly. All that noise, all that smoke, and not even my sleeve is dirty. Tell me, Riser, is this the best you've got? Because if so, this duel's going to be very short. Riser's flames burst brighter again, his smirk returning but tighter now. Don't mock me, brat. That was only the beginning. I leaned forward slightly, smirking. Only the beginning? Then maybe try something that doesn't look like a bonfire gone wrong. You call yourself immortal, but right now you just look like a cook with a temper. The audience rippled with faint murmurs again, some chuckling quietly, others watching Riser's face with interest. Rias's crimson eyes narrowed faintly, watching me closely. Issei shouted suddenly, his voice cracked. Don't joke around, Shredder. This isn't a game. I laughed, waving cheerfully at him. Of course it's a game, Issei. And I'm winning without even moving. His fists shook harder, his teeth grinding, but he didn't answer. Riser raised his hands again, flames surging hotter. His wings spread wider as he shouted, burn to ash. This time the firestorm twisted tighter, condensed into a spear of flame that shot forward like a lance. The heat cut through the hall with sharper focus, aimed directly at my chest. The original tilted. Smaller fire. The gold chirped faintly. Pointy. The green sniffed. Faster. The blue blinked slowly. Still weak. The white pressed tighter. I smirked wider, my grin unshaken. Better. At least you're aiming this time. But still sloppy. The spear slammed toward me and shattered instantly on impact, breaking apart into scattered sparks that fizzled out against the marble floor. I stood unchanged, brushing a fleck of ash off my shoulder with a cheerful smile. See? You can throw as much fire as you want, but at the end of the day, you're just reheating the air. Nothing more. The audience erupted again, some gasping, some murmuring louder now. A few nobles smirked faintly, others leaned in closer with interest. Riser's smirk had vanished completely, his teeth gritting faintly. His flames surged hotter, desperation flickering in his amber eyes. I laughed loudly, spreading my arms wide. Perfect. The mighty Riser Phoenix, reduced to a street performer in his own hall. How's it feel, pigeon boy? To know your flames can't even singe me. Chapter 44, The Pigeon Dives. The hall was hot with leftover heat from Riser's failed flames. Smoke curled faintly above the marble, the polished floor marked with black streaks where his fire had landed. The air was heavy, but I still stood comfortably in the middle of the chamber, untouched, my grin wide and unchanging. The audience of devils buzzed louder now. Some nobles whispered to each other with thin smiles, others leaned forward with curiosity. Murmurs bounced through the chamber not about Rias, not about the marriage, but about me. Riser's amber eyes burned hotter than his flames. His smirk was gone, his jaw clenched tight. He hovered above me, wings spread wide, fire still glowing faintly at their tips. For the first time, his composure cracked. I tilted my head, smirking wider. What's wrong, bird boy? The fire not working out? Maybe you should try flapping harder. The original wagged its tail softly. He looks mad. The gold chirped faintly. He's shaking. The green sniffed. He lost his smirk. The blue blinked slowly. He'll rush. The white pressed silently against my side. I laughed cheerfully, raising my voice so everyone could hear. Perfect. Look at him, the calm, smug pigeon is gone. Now he's just a bird flapping at random. Gasps and faint chuckles rippled through the audience. Riser's teeth ground together, his flames surging brighter. You insolent brat! And then he dove. His wings snapped tight against his back as he shot downward like a blazing comet, the marble floor cracking under the sudden pressure. Fire burst around his body as he barreled toward me, fists clenched, his amber eyes locked. The audience gasped loudly as the air warped from the force of his charge. I didn't move. I grinned wider, arms still at my sides. Finally. He stopped hiding in the air. The original wagged faintly. He's fast now. The gold chirped brightly. Shiny. The green sniffed. Sloppy dive. The blue blinked slowly. Straight line. The white pressed closer. I chuckled. Exactly. Even a bird brain could see this coming. Riser's fist slammed down, fire exploding from his knuckles as it struck the floor where I had been standing. The marble cracked instantly, chunks of polished stone flying outward as flames burst across the hall. The force rattled the chamber, the magical barriers sparking faintly in reaction. The audience erupted with gasps, shielding themselves from the heat. But when the smoke cleared, I was standing casually a step to the side, my grin unshaken. Riser's fist was buried in the marble, his flames scorching the floor but touching nothing else. I leaned forward slightly, smirking. Nice punch. Shame you missed. Riser growled, wrenching his fist free as flames burst brighter around his body. He swung again instantly, his other hand igniting as it cut through the air toward me. I stepped lazily back, his strike slamming into empty space, cracking more stone as fire hissed harmlessly past. The original wagged. He keeps missing. The gold chirped faintly. Loud punches. The green sniffed. Wasting strength. The blue blinked slowly. No control. The white pressed closer. I laughed loudly, cheerful. Perfect. The mighty riser Phoenix, flailing like a drunk boxer. Tell me, bird boy, do you always miss this badly, or is it just in front of an audience? Gasps and chuckles rippled again through the nobles watching, several of them covering their mouths to hide smiles. Rias's crimson eyes narrowed faintly, her fists trembling. Issei's jaw was locked tight, his fists shaking harder. Riser spun, his flames surging as he swung both fists in a barrage, fire exploding with every strike. The marble floor cracked and burned with each impact, shards of stone flying across the chamber. I stepped calmly between the blows, weaving lazily as though walking through a garden instead of a duel. Each strike missed by inches, Riser's fire scorching the floor but never touching me. I smirked, my voice cheerful. That's it? Throwing tantrums with your fists? You look less like a noble and more like a toddler denied a toy. The original wagged happily. He's missing everything. The gold chirped faintly. He's noisy. The green sniffed. It's desperate. The blue blinked slowly. He can't hit you. The white pressed tighter. I chuckled loudly. Exactly. He's fighting shadows. Riser roared in frustration, his flames bursting brighter until his entire body glowed. He lunged again, this time slamming both fists downward with a massive burst of fire, the impact rattling the chamber. The explosion filled the hall with smoke and sparks, the marble floor splitting further. The heat washed across the audience, forcing several to shield their faces. But when the smoke cleared, I was standing directly behind him, untouched, my grin wide. Riser froze, his amber eyes widening slightly as he realized his strikes had missed again. I leaned casually forward, cheerful. Right here, bird boy. Too slow. Gasps spread through the hall, the nobles murmuring louder now, some clearly amused, others astonished. Riser spun, swinging wildly, but I stepped back again easily. His flames lashed past, scorching the floor but touching nothing. I laughed loudly, clapping once. Perfect. The Prince of Fire, reduced to swinging at air. If this is your idea of combat, no wonder you hide behind your women. The audience stirred sharply at my words. Several nobles smirked faintly, others whispered louder. Riser's face twisted with fury, his flames flaring violently around him. The original tilted faintly. He's losing control. The gold chirped softly. Shiny but messy. The green sniffed. He's weaker already. The blue blinked slowly. Tired. The white pressed close. I smirked wider. Exactly. He's burning himself out faster than his own fire. Rias's crimson eyes locked on me briefly, her fists trembling harder. She didn't speak, but her expression twisted faintly at my words. Issei shouted suddenly, his voice raw. Stop making fun of him. Just fight, Shredder. I waved cheerfully in his direction. Don't worry, Issei. I am fighting. I just happen to look good doing it, unlike you. His teeth clenched harder, his fists shaking violently, but he said nothing more. Riser panted faintly now, his flames still burning but less controlled, his movements heavier. He glared at me with fury, his teeth gritted tight. "You," he growled, his voice cracking faintly. I raised my voice cheerfully. "What's wrong? Out of breath already? You've done nothing but throw tantrums and fire, and I'm still clean enough to walk into a dinner party." Gasps and faint chuckles spread again through the hall, nobles clearly entertained. Riser's flames surged again, but his hands trembled faintly at his sides. I smirked wide. "Perfect." The mighty immortal bird, shaking like a candle about to go out. Chapter 46, Riser loses himself. The marble chamber still glowed faintly from the afterimage of my regeneration. The whispers hadn't died down yet. Every noble was leaning into one another, their voices low but sharp, the words bouncing back and forth. "Faster than Fennec's flames. No scars at all. Clean, frighteningly clean." I didn't need to listen closely to know they were talking about me. Riser heard them too. His smirk was gone. His lips were pressed into a thin line, his jaw tight enough that his teeth ground together audibly. His amber eyes shook, wide but burning, not with confidence, with rage. The flames around his shoulders snapped and hissed without rhythm, as though his body couldn't keep its own fire steady anymore. His wings flicked out sharply, embers scattering across the cracked marble. Sweat glistened faintly at his brow, but he ignored it. He stared at me as if his glare alone could tear me apart. I grinned wide, cheerful. "Perfect. The immortal bird looks like he's about to molt. Tell me, Riser, is it hard knowing a shoulder wound beat you in front of your entire family?" Gasps and chuckles rippled across the chamber. The original wagged its tail softly. "He's red." The gold chirped faintly. "Shaking." The green sniffed. "His fire is ugly now." The blue blinked slowly. "Not smooth." The white pressed closer to me, quiet. Riser's lips curled back into a snarl. His amber eyes flared, and for the first time, he didn't try to sound composed. He screamed. "Enough!" His voice cracked, echoing across the chamber, and then the flames exploded. It wasn't like before, when his fire had been channeled into spears or walls. This time it was wild. Chaotic. A torrent of flame surged outward from his body in every direction at once, a storm of heat and light that lit up the entire chamber. Banners caught fire instantly, burning to ash before they hit the ground. Pillars blackened, cracks glowing orange as heat bled through them. The polished marble floor split under the sheer force, glowing faintly as if magma had seeped beneath it. The magical barrier enclosing the hall shuddered violently, sparks leaping across its surface as it strained under the sudden, unfocused assault. Gasps erupted from the crowd as nobles shielded themselves, fanning their faces as the heat rolled over them in waves. Riser's silhouette was barely visible inside the inferno. His wings were spread wide, his arms raised high, flames bursting from every inch of him. His roar mixed with the crackling fire, no words, just sound, fury, and humiliation poured out in a single tantrum. And me? I stood still, untouched, grinning wider. The fire swirled around me, licking across the marble, curling against the barrier, but none of it reached me. Not a hair on my head burned. My shirt stayed spotless. My dragons perched without flinching, their tails wagging faintly as though the flames were nothing more than a breeze. The original wagged happily. Noisy. The gold chirped faintly. "It's everywhere." The green sniffed. Sloppy. The blue blinked slowly. Wasted. The white pressed silently against me. I raised my voice cheerfully, cutting clean through the roar. "Look at this. The great Riser Fennex, reduced to a child throwing a tantrum in his own hall. This isn't a fight. This is flailing." Several nobles chuckled despite themselves. Others whispered behind their hands, their gazes darting between me, calm, clean, smiling, and Riser, raging and burning uncontrollably. Riser's roar didn't stop. His fire surged harder, the barrier groaning under the pressure. Sparks of magic fell like rain as the wards strained. Graphia's voice rang out, clear but firm. Riser Phoenix. Control yourself. This is a family hall, not a battlefield. Her words were swallowed by the storm. Riser either didn't hear or didn't care. I laughed louder, cheerful. Perfect. Even Graphia can't calm him down. Tell me, bird boy, do you always break things when someone else gets the spotlight? Or is this special for me? The flames surged again, smoke rising toward the ceiling until the chamber grew hazy. The air burned hot enough that several nobles retreated to the farthest edges, shielding themselves with spells. Through it all, I kept standing still, smirking wide. The original wagged softly. He's not stopping. The gold chirped faintly. Getting hotter. The green sniffed. He's weaker now. The blue blinked slowly. Burning himself out. The white pressed closer. I chuckled cheerfully. Exactly. He's losing strength faster than his own fire spreads. By the time he stops, he'll collapse and I'll still look perfect. Gasps rippled through the chamber again, followed by chuckles from the braver nobles. Riser's outline shook faintly inside the flames, his roar turning hoarse. His wings trembled under the strain. His firestorm, though still raging, no longer surged as sharply. He was running out. Rhea stared at me from across the hall, her crimson eyes wide but unreadable. Her fists trembled faintly, but she didn't move or speak. Issei clenched his fists tighter, sweat running down his face from the heat, but he too said nothing. All attention was fixed on me and the storm. And me? I raised my arms wide, cheerful. Look at me! I shouted. Standing in the middle of his fury, not even sweating. This is the difference between us. He calls himself immortal, but he can't even touch me. The flames cracked louder, the marble beneath my feet glowing faintly, but I remained untouched. My grin didn't fade. Riser's voice cracked as he screamed again, though the sound was weaker now. His firestorm sputtered faintly in places, his control gone. The original wagged happily. It's dying down. The gold chirped faintly. Smaller flames. The green sniffed. He's exhausted. The blue blinked slowly. He wasted it all. The white pressed tighter. I laughed loudly, my grin sharp. Perfect. He threw everything he had into a tantrum, and what's left? Smoke. Ash. Nothing worth watching. Gasps and murmurs filled the chamber again. Nobles leaned toward one another, nodding, whispering, smirking. Riser's silhouette wavered inside the flames, his body hunched faintly, his wings trembling harder. His firestorm sputtered one last time, then collapsed inward. The flames dimmed suddenly, vanishing as quickly as they had surged. Smoke filled the air, rising to the ceiling. The marble floor was cracked and glowing faintly, banners burned away, pillars blackened. And Riser stood in the middle of it, chest heaving, sweat dripping down his face, his flames flickering faintly but weakly. His amber eyes were wide, bloodshot, his teeth clenched, his pride shattered. I stood across from him, untouched, spotless, my grin wide. Chapter 47, The End of the Bird. The hall still steamed with the remnants of Riser's firestorm. The marble floor glowed faintly in long cracks, the polished stone blackened and warped. Ash floated in the air where once grand banners had hung. The enchanted barrier surrounding the chamber flickered faintly, straining as it recovered from the storm it had barely contained. Smoke swirled near the ceiling, and through it stood Riser. His chest heaved violently, his shirt torn and scorched, sweat dripping down his face. His flames were still there, but weak, sputtering like a candle in the wind instead of roaring like an inferno. His amber eyes glared at me, but behind the fury, there was strain. His arms shook faintly, his wings drooped lower. And me? I stood exactly where I had been before. Untouched. My shirt still clean, not even a wrinkle out of place. My grin wide, cheerful, unchanging. The original wagged happily. You're fine. The gold chirped faintly. He's messy. The green sniffed. He's tired. The blue blinked slowly. He's finished. The white pressed close against me. I raised my voice cheerfully, cutting through the fading roar of fire. Perfect. Look at us, me clean as ever, and you dripping sweat like you just ran laps around your own ego. Tell me, Riser, was it worth it? All that noise, all that fire, just to prove you're worse than me. Gasps and murmurs rippled across the crowd again. Several nobles smirked faintly, others chuckled behind their hands. Riser's teeth ground together audibly. His fists clenched, his flames sputtering harder. Shut up! I tilted my head, smirking wider. Oh? The bird speaks. Finally. Too bad it's still nonsense. He staggered a step forward, trying to lift his arms higher. His flames sputtered and sparked, but the strength behind them was gone. His voice cracked as he shouted again. I am Phoenix. I laughed loudly, cheerful. And I'm better. Let me show you why. I moved. For the first time since the duel began, I stepped forward. One simple stride. The sound of my heel against the cracked marble echoed through the chamber louder than his flames. The audience grew silent instantly, every noble leaning forward, every eye locked on me. Riser froze, his amber eyes widening slightly. His wings twitched, but he didn't retreat. I took another step. Calm. Steady. Cheerful. Don't worry, I said brightly, my grin wide. I'll make this quick. You've embarrassed yourself enough already. Gasps spread through the chamber. Riser roared weakly, lifting his fist as flames sputtered around it. He swung clumsily toward me, fire bursting outward, sloppy and weak. I didn't dodge. I caught his fist in my hand. The flames sputtered against my palm, hissing uselessly before vanishing into sparks. His knuckles pressed against my skin, but there was no strength behind them. The audience gasped again, louder this time. Rias's crimson eyes widened faintly, her lips parting. Issei's jaw dropped, his fists loosening slightly. Even Graphia's silver eyes flickered with subtle surprise. I smirked wide, cheerful. That's it. All that fire, all that noise, and your punch feels like a pillow. Riser's amber eyes shook, his teeth grinding. He tried to pull his hand back, but my grip didn't budge. The original wagged softly. You caught him. The gold chirped faintly. Easy. The green sniffed. He's weak. The blue blinked slowly. It's over. The white pressed closer. I chuckled, cheerful. Exactly. Then I struck. My free hand came up casually, almost lazily, and I slammed my fist into his chest. The impact cracked across the chamber like thunder. The marble beneath us split instantly, lines shooting out in every direction. The air itself seemed to shake as Riser's body was launched backward. He flew across the hall, flames sputtering wildly from his body, before slamming into a pillar with enough force to crack it. The stone split, dust raining down, the pillar groaning as if it would collapse. Gasps and shouts erupted from the audience, nobles jumping from their seats, their eyes wide. Riser's body slumped forward from the impact, his flames flickering faintly. He coughed hard, blood spilling from his mouth before his flames tried to close the wound. But the regeneration was slower now. Weaker. His flames sputtered, struggling to knit the damage. I smirked wider, cheerful, my voice loud. Perfect. You're supposed to be immortal, and yet one punch from me left you coughing blood in front of everyone. Tell me, bird boy, how does it feel to lose the one thing you thought made you special? Gasps and murmurs rose again. This time, many nobles weren't even hiding their smirks. Riser groaned, struggling to rise. His wings trembled violently, his arms shook, his amber eyes wide with disbelief. He coughed again, blood dripping onto the cracked marble. I can't, he muttered faintly. I raised my voice, cheerful. You can't keep up, that's what you can't do. You spent everything and still lost. Look at you shaking, bleeding, weak. I thought immortality was supposed to mean something more than this. The original wagged happily. You won. The gold chirped faintly. He's down. The green sniffed. He can't fight. The blue blinked slowly. Finished. The white pressed silently against me. I chuckled. Exactly. Finished. Graphia stepped forward now, her silver eyes sharp, her tone firm. Enough. This duel has gone far enough. The result is clear. The barrier around the hall shimmered faintly, her magic reinforcing it to steady the structure. The nobles quieted, their murmurs fading into silence. All eyes remained locked on me, on Riser slumped against the broken pillar, his flames sputtering weakly. I raised my hand cheerfully, waving at them. That's right. Remember this picture, everyone, me standing clean, and Riser crawling through his own smoke. Gasps and chuckles spread again. Riser's face twisted in humiliation, his amber eyes burning with shame. Chapter 48, The Crimson Gaze. The chamber was silent except for the faint crackle of dying flames. Riser slumped against the cracked pillar, coughing weakly. His wings trembled at his sides, his chest rising and falling in shallow gasps. The once proud fire that had lit up the hall sputtered faintly around him, no longer an inferno, but pathetic embers clinging to his frame. Blood still clung faintly at his lips, his regeneration sluggish, struggling to keep up with the blow I had delivered. His amber eyes were wide, his smirk gone, his pride broken in front of everyone. And me? I stood tall in the center of the scorched marble floor, untouched, spotless. Not a scratch, not a singe, not even a bead of sweat. My grin stretched wide, cheerful, my arms open slightly as if I were welcoming applause. The audience of devils whispered louder now, their murmurs echoing across the chamber. Some nobles smirked faintly, some frowned in quiet disapproval, but most couldn't tear their eyes off me. The original wagged happily. He's down. The gold chirped faintly. Quiet now. The green sniffed. He looks broken. The blue blinked slowly. It's finished. The white pressed silently against me. I laughed, my voice carrying easily across the room. Perfect. Look at this. The great Riser Phoenix, coughing blood while I look like I just arrived for dinner. Tell me, everyone who here still thinks this pigeon is worth respect. Gasps and chuckles rippled through the chamber again. Riser groaned weakly, lowering his head further, his shame clear. And then, from the corner of my eye, I saw it. Rias. She wasn't looking at Riser anymore. Her crimson eyes were locked on me. Her fists trembled faintly at her sides, her body tense, but her gaze was steady. Wide. Searching. The way she stared wasn't just shock, it was realization. The realization of the gap between us. Her peerage had fought hard, had bled, had tried, and lost. Riser had gloated, had roared, and been humiliated. And me? I had stood still, calm, cheerful, and ended it with one strike. Her crimson eyes widened faintly, her lips pressing tightly together as if she couldn't form the words. I grinned wider, tilting my head toward her. Oh? Finally looking at me, Rias? Took you long enough. Gasps rippled through the audience again as heads turned toward her. Her lips parted faintly, but no sound came. I raised my voice, cheerful and mocking. You lost to him. You kneeled in front of everyone, powerless. And now, you're staring at me, because you know I did in one strike what you couldn't do with your entire peerage. Rias flinched faintly, her crimson eyes narrowing slightly, but she didn't look away. The original wagged softly. She's staring. The gold chirped faintly. At you. The green sniffed. She knows. The blue blinked slowly. She's weaker. The white pressed close to me. I chuckled, cheerful. Exactly. She knows. Issei clenched his fists tighter, his teeth grinding as he shouted. Shut up. Rias senpai gave everything. Don't you dare. I cut him off, grinning wider. Gave everything? And still lost. Don't blame me for pointing it out, Issei. It's not my fault your king isn't strong enough. Gasps rippled again. Issei froze, his fists trembling violently, his jaw locked, but he couldn't respond. Rias's crimson eyes flicked toward him for a moment, then back to me. I tilted my head, cheerful. Don't glare at me like that, Rias. I'm not insulting you. I'm stating the truth. You're weak. Your peerage is weak. And compared to me, you're nothing. Her fists clenched tighter, her nails digging into her palms, her lips pressing thin. Graphia's silver eyes shifted faintly toward me, her tone calm but firm. Shredder. I raised a hand cheerfully in her direction. Relax, Graphia. I'm only helping her see reality. She asked for a rating game, she fought for her pride, and she lost. And now, she's staring at me because she knows her pride was misplaced. Gasps spread again. Nobles leaned closer, whispering louder now. Some frowned, others smirked, clearly entertained. Riser groaned weakly from the ground, his voice hoarse. Shut him. I laughed loudly, cheerful. Shut me up? You couldn't even hit me. Sit down, bird boy, the adults are talking. The chamber erupted with murmurs and chuckles again. Rias's crimson eyes stayed locked on me, steady despite the tension. I raised my voice, cheerful, every word sharp. You spent weeks training, planning, preparing. You stood tall, called yourself a king. And yet, when it mattered, you lost everything. And now you can't stop staring at me, because deep down, you know who the real king is in this room. Gasps and murmurs filled the chamber again. Rias flinched faintly, but her eyes didn't drop. Her fists trembled harder, her jaw tight. The original wagged faintly. She's upset. The gold chirped softly. She knows it's true. The green sniffed. She can't deny it. The blue blinked slowly. She's smaller. The white pressed closer. I grinned wider, cheerful. Perfect. That look on your face says everything. You know I'm right. You lost to Riser, but compared to me, Riser himself is nothing. Which means you're even less. Gasps spread louder this time, nobles murmuring sharply, their voices rising. Rias's lips parted faintly, but she said nothing. Her crimson eyes burned, locked on me, a mixture of anger, shame, and something else acknowledgement. Issei finally shouted again, his voice raw. You're not better than her. Rias senpai is. I raised my hand cheerfully, cutting him off. Better than her? I just proved it in front of everyone, Issei. She's a king who can't win, a leader who can't protect, and you're her pawn who can't even stand up. If that's the best she has, she doesn't deserve the title. Gasps filled the chamber again. Some nobles nodded faintly, others frowned, but none looked away. Rias's crimson eyes trembled faintly, but she didn't look away from me. I smirked wide. Exactly. You know it too. Chapter 49, Collapse of the Bird. The chamber was thick with silence. Not silence of peace, but silence filled with tension, humiliation, and shock. The air was heavy with smoke and the faint sting of scorched marble. Ash drifted gently from the rafters where once ground banners had been reduced to nothing. Riser leaned against the cracked pillar, his chest heaving violently. His amber eyes were unfocused, his flames sputtering weakly across his shoulders and wings. Sweat streamed down his forehead, dripping into his bloodied mouth. His arms hung uselessly at his sides, trembling too much to lift. I stood in the center of the ruined floor, untouched. Not even breathing hard. My grin wide, cheerful, unchanging. The nobles in the audience whispered louder now. Their voices weren't subtle anymore, their eyes darted between me and Riser, many of them smirking faintly. A few frowned with tight lips, uncomfortable at the public spectacle, but they still couldn't look away. Rias's crimson eyes remained locked on me. Tense. Wide. Trembling faintly with something between shame and realization. Issei clenched his fists tightly, his teeth grinding as he glared at me, but his body stayed rooted to the spot. The original wagged happily. He's shaking. The gold chirped faintly. He looks sick. The green sniffed. Too weak. The blue blinked slowly. He's going to fall. The white pressed silently against me. I laughed loudly, cheerful. Perfect. Look at him. The great riser phoenix, the immortal bird, reduced to trembling like a chick tossed from the nest. Gasps and chuckles rippled across the chamber again. Riser tried to speak, his lips parting weakly. I am, his voice cracked into nothing, his throat straining with the effort. I tilted my head, smirking. You are finished. Then, finally, his body gave out. His knees buckled sharply, his wings twitching once before collapsing entirely. His body slumped forward, hitting the scorched marble with a heavy thud. The flames sputtered faintly around him, flickering one last time before dying out completely. The fire that once engulfed the chamber was gone. Only ash and smoke remained. Gasps erupted from the nobles. Some rose to their feet in shock, others murmured louder. A few smirked faintly, shaking their heads. Riser's amber eyes rolled shut, his face pressed against the cracked floor. His chest still rose and fell faintly, but his body refused to move. The heir of Phoenix was unconscious in front of everyone. I raised both hands cheerfully, my grin stretching. And there it is. The mighty bird has finally landed face first. Immortal, he says, yet he faints like any other weakling. Someone wake him up, maybe pour him a glass of water, or better yet, milk. He looks like he needs it. Gasps and laughter rippled across the hall. Several nobles chuckled openly now, not even bothering to hide it. Others whispered sharper, clearly humiliated on the Phoenix family's behalf. The original wagged happily. He's asleep. The gold chirped faintly. Quiet now. The green sniffed. Pathetic. The blue blinked slowly. He's done. The white pressed closer silently. I laughed again, cheerful. Exactly. Done. Graphia stepped forward, her silver eyes calm but sharp. She raised her voice, firm and unyielding. The duel is over. Riser Phoenix can no longer continue. The barrier around the hall shimmered faintly, her magic reinforcing the structure as if to steady it after all the chaos. The nobles quieted instantly at her tone, though their murmurs continued in low whispers. All eyes remained locked on me and the unconscious riser sprawled across the marble. I waved cheerfully toward Graphia. "Thank you, Graphia. I would have declared it myself, but it sounds so much better when you do it." Gasps and chuckles followed again. Rias finally tore her gaze from me, her crimson eyes falling to Riser's unconscious body. Her fists trembled at her sides, her lips pressing tightly together. Issei shouted suddenly, his voice cracking. "Damn it! Riser! Get up!" But Riser didn't move. His chest rose and fell faintly, his body still unconscious. I smirked toward Issei, cheerful. "Don't waste your breath, Issei. He's done. He's not getting up. If your king couldn't defeat him, what chance do you think he has now against me?" Gasps erupted again. Issei froze, his fists trembling, his teeth grinding, but he had no words to answer. Rias's crimson eyes flicked briefly toward me again before lowering, her expression unreadable. The original wagged softly. "He's really out." The gold chirped faintly. "Everyone's looking at you." The green sniffed. "Because you won." The blue blinked slowly. "Because he lost." The white pressed close against me. I raised my voice cheerfully, waving broadly toward the nobles. "Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the show. The bird is down, the king is speechless, the pawn is useless, and I'm still standing beautiful. A perfect evening, don't you think?" Gasps, chuckles, and even some applause rippled through the chamber. Graphia's silver eyes narrowed faintly, but she remained composed. "Enough. This display has gone far enough." Riser lay motionless against the floor, his unconscious body a clear picture of defeat. His regeneration sputtered faintly but failed to erase the humiliation of collapsing in front of everyone. I smirked wide, cheerful, my voice ringing across the chamber one last time. "Remember this picture, everyone, the immortal bird, unconscious and broken. And me, untouched, smiling, the real star of the night." Gasps and laughter rippled again. Chapter 50, Curtain Falls. Riser's body didn't move. His amber eyes stayed shut, his chest rising and falling faintly against the cracked marble floor. His once proud flames were gone, flickering only in small sparks that died as quickly as they appeared. The nobles whispered quietly among themselves, though the sound echoed in the vast chamber. Some leaned forward in their seats, smirking faintly. Others frowned, their expressions tight with disapproval, but even they couldn't hide their curiosity. The proud heir of the Phoenix family had collapsed in front of everyone. I stood tall in the center of the ruined hall, untouched, my grin wide and cheerful. My clothes were spotless, not a scratch or stain to be seen. My posture was relaxed, my tone light, but every word I had spoken earlier still hung heavy in the air. The original wagged its tail softly. "He's not waking up." The gold chirped faintly. Everyone's staring. The green sniffed. "Pathetic bird." The blue blinked slowly. "It's quiet now." The white pressed against me, silent. I raised my voice cheerfully, letting it carry across the chamber. "Well, that was fun. One punch, and the immortal bird is already taking his nap. Someone bring him a pillow before he drools on the floor." Gasps and chuckles rippled through the nobles. Graphia moved then. Her silver eyes scanned the ruined hall once before she stepped forward, her expression calm but firm. Her voice carried easily, each word clipped and sharp. "This duel is concluded. Riser Phoenix can no longer continue. There is no need for further spectacle." The audience quieted instantly at her tone. Even the nobles who had been chuckling fell silent, their heads straightening. Graphia's authority pressed against the chamber like a weight. She raised her hand slightly, magic swirling faintly. Riser's unconscious body glowed briefly before vanishing in a flash of teleportation, whisked away from the hall. The cracked marble where he had lain was left empty, save for the faint scorch marks. Murmurs rippled through the nobles again. The Fennec's heir. Humiliated, like this. That boy. Their eyes darted toward me, their voices lowered but sharp with curiosity. I chuckled, cheerful. Perfect. He needed the rest. But don't worry, everyone, I'll remember the picture, Riser lying face first in the dirt, while I smiled clean. That image will stay with me forever. Gasps and chuckles spread again. The original wagged happily. You won. The gold chirped faintly. He's gone. The green sniffed. Finally quiet. The blue blinked slowly. Over. The white pressed closer. I smirked wider, cheerful. Exactly. Over. Grafia turned toward the nobles, her expression steady. This hall has seen enough damage for one night. Guests are dismissed. Several nobles frowned faintly, as if they wanted to linger, but none dared disobey her. Slowly, one by one, the audience began to rise. Cloaks swished, heels clicked across the marble, voices murmured low as the devils filed toward the exits. Their whispers carried, though not even touched. Faster than Fennec's flames. Riser will never live this down. I grinned wider at the sound, my hands spread slightly as if accepting applause. Rhea still stood off to the side, her crimson eyes locked on me. Her fists trembled faintly at her sides, her lips pressed tight. Her entire peerage lingered behind her, each silent, their faces pale, their bodies still bearing the marks of their earlier defeat. Issei glared openly at me, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. His jaw worked furiously, but no words left his mouth. I waved cheerfully toward them. Cheer up, everyone. At least you got front row seats to watch how a real fight looks. Gasps rippled through the nobles again as they passed, some smirking faintly at my words. Rhea's flinched faintly, her crimson eyes narrowing, but she didn't speak. The original wagged happily. She's angry. The gold chirped faintly. So is he. The green sniffed. They're weak. The blue blinked slowly. Embarrassed. The white pressed silently against me. I chuckled. Exactly. Embarrassed. Grafia's silver eyes turned toward me, calm but sharp. Enough. You've made your point clear. I smirked, cheerful. My point was clear the moment I walked in, Grafia. But sure, we can stop now. No need to keep rubbing salt on the wound, I've done enough. Gasps rippled again at my bluntness. Grafia didn't react, her expression unchanging. She lifted her hand again, magic shimmering as she reinforced the damaged barrier one last time. The nobles continued filing out, their whispers following them into the corridors beyond. When the chamber was nearly empty, I stretched my arms casually, my grin wide. Well, that was entertaining. A waste of my time, maybe, but still entertaining. I'll admit, I expected more from the Fennec's heir. Guest titles don't mean much when you're on the floor. Gasps and chuckles echoed one last time from the nobles near the door. Rhea's crimson eyes trembled faintly, but she didn't speak. Issei's fists trembled violently, but he too remained silent. The original wagged softly. They're all leaving. The gold chirped faintly. It's quiet again. The green sniffed. You won. The blue blinked slowly. Easily. The white pressed close. I smirked wide, cheerful. Exactly. Easily. Grafia lowered her hand, her silver eyes scanning the ruined chamber once more. Then she turned sharply toward me. This night is over. Return home. Her voice left no room for argument. I raised my hands cheerfully. Fine, fine. I'll go. But I'll remember tonight for a long time. And so will everyone else. Gasps and murmurs followed one last time before the nobles fully exited. The chamber was left scarred, quiet, and empty save for the broken marble and the lingering weight of humiliation for one Fennec's heir.